Well, it says I'm live, so good morning. Hope everybody's well, not freezing to death. It's weird. I want to turn the sound on so I can hear myself. Good morning.
Heidi, Christ Almighty, who the heck are we? What?
Well, you've been watching something.
You're freezing up on me already.
Oh no. Well, it is cold here. Well, cold for Tennessee, cold anyway.
It was 7 here this morning, bright and shiny and blue sky and snow everywhere. And
A beautiful winter's day, huh?
good morning, Tina. Good morning, Carol. It was, it's just, the Highlands are cold right now.
Well, it's when I got up this morning, I think it was 18, and
That's cold for Tennessee.
yeah, well, we had -5 wind chill or something the other night. I don't know. Anyway, or feels like temperature, they call it now. But it's 31 now, it says.
That's because people have become wimps. It used to just to be the temperature.
Yeah.
It feels like the heat index, the whatever.
What it is it feels like it's cold.
It feels like it's cold, and that's all right.
That's not a bad thing. I just watched, so I don't know how much I'm up to date on things like this. Nice app, by the way.
It might kill some woolly adelgids or something.
Well, that'd be good.
I mean, there might be some death of like ash borer beetles or something over this deal.
That would be lovely.
I'm trying to look on the positive side.
Okay.
Well, I mean, we had a terrible pine beetle squirrel outbreak here in this country for years, and it took some pretty severe temperatures to get them out of here for a while. I'm sure they're still around, but
yeah, we've had that problem too. Not a huge outbreak recently, but it's not been that long ago when I was at TVA and we had an awful with two things. One, that wasn't cold.
Right.
Not really cold. And two, we had a droughty 3 or 4 year drought that was going on here that weakened the trees so bad that the pine beetles just mowed right through them.
And they're not a non-native. I mean, they're a native species.
Oh yeah, they're a native southern pine beetle.
And we had entire mountain ranges, like the Uintas south of me here. Everything that was a conifer just turned red. All within a matter of like 4 or 5 years, they were all dead.
Are they out there?
And then what do you do with that? I mean, once the needles fall off and things, it's hard to get a fire controlled burn to burn.
Right.
And the timber's of no value, so you're not going to get anybody to go up there and cut those trees and make, well, they're of value, but they don't have a timber value. You're freezing up bad this morning.
Am I?
You're just from my standpoint, you just keep pausing.
I'm being still. I'm being very still. I'm practicing my slow motion. I'm trying to get more, maybe
I am the sloth.
Maybe I can get back in a tree stand someday and I need to be still.
Wait a minute, I just can do this if I'm the sloth.
So I got this. Now I'm going to come back to the pine beetle, but just a minute.
we don't need to.
I watched part of Zootopia the other night, and I saw the part about where they went to the motor vehicle department and the sloths. Have you ever seen that? Oh,
No, I
you
don't.
need
I
to get.
don't even know what you're talking
Well,
about.
it's a Disney animated movie called Zootopia.
Never seen it.
Well, you need to get it for your youngins because they'd love it. It's all about animals. It's cool.
Oh, I'm sure they've seen it 1,000 times.
Well, there's a scene in there where they go to the motor vehicle, the DMV, to get some kind of information about a license plate, and everybody that works in there is a sloth. Every line in the place is backed up. They get to a line and they start. The guys, the one they get, I can't remember his name, Sanders. He's typing a. What was that other number you said? 5. And it's taking forever. Hilarious. And it's just like going to the real DMV.
So my DMV, that you go in there and you get it done, and it's quick, and you're out the door and you're gone.
That's because you live out there where there's only 5
But
people.
they might ask you for a piece of paper that you didn't have that's 18 miles from the spot you're standing, so you have to drive back to the house and get that piece of paper. I mean, they do that thing, which aggravates me, but they're quick about their work. But when I lived in Arizona, man alive, that was like a nightmare going to see, and they were exactly like those people. Like, we hate our jobs. We don't work too fast.
Okay, I got to go back to the pine beetles a minute. Bear me out.
What's that got to do with what we're talking about today? Nothing.
No, we're going to talk about. So who said that?
Tina said it feels cold because it's cold.
No, oh well, I can take that back off. But what I thought you said something else. I can't find it, Tina. I don't know where it is. Oh, there. Good morning, Mr. Mike. I want to say good morning to you.
Why would anybody have hound dogs that doesn't hunt bears or coons or something?
I don't know. Maybe Tina can tell.
Or lions. I just don't. Hounds are hounds.
Okay, back to the pine beetle. Can't on there. I gotta get this off my mind.
Morning, Mike.
Do the beetles out there just attack all conifers? This is one question. I have a second question. Are they just pretty much hit everything?
They were killing everything but subalpine firs, which we call urine fir. Not really urine fir, but because that's what it smells like when you burn it. But all the conifers, spruces, and all the pines, they just wiped them out, and especially lodgepole pine, which is our most common conifer.
Yeah. Well, I can see that because they're so thick they would just spread, because they spread by, at least back here, they don't fly. They spread by walking tree to tree kind of thing. I don't think they spread by flying. But when the trees are that tight together, they can just move from.
Well, the adults can fly like crazy, and they're about that long.
Okay, I don't know if ours can fly, but anyway.
Oh yeah, and they're like, you'll be like sitting in a camp or something, and here they come. You must be having some pain this morning, bro.
Yeah, I am. So back here, mainly they attack, or at least the species that we had, primarily yellow pine predator. Not predator, but parasite, whatever. And normally that's pretty much all they kill. Back here, that time, because of the weather and how bad it'd been, and they killed like all the pines they could find, and then they started, or the yellow pines, and then they started killing the white pines in places where nobody thought they would, because they'd never seen them do it before.
Right.
So you said they're not worth anything. Well, they tried to, like you said, it's a fire hazard. You can't burn it. I mean, it's a big deal. And what they did here was they sold a lot of it off when they could to pulpers, and they went in and tried to cut it while they could to use it for pulpwood.
Yeah, and we don't have any pulpwood mills.
Right.
So,
Well, we have plenty. Then another thing that happens when these beetles hit here, or not beetles, are they beetles?
they're beetles.
Yeah, they're beetles.
They're longhorn pine boring beetles.
When the beetles hit here, one of the things that happens is as they lay their eggs in the tree and the little varmints eat the xylem and flow them out and it kills the tree. It also introduces a fungus to the tree,
which turns the wood blue streaked.
which turns the wood blue streak. So somebody back here got the idea that if they could get to them quick enough, because that's another thing. It's weird. You can cut them real quick and the wood's okay, but if you wait just a few weeks or a month, it's already starting to rot. It's amazing.
Right.
So somebody got the idea that they go in and cut them just as quick as they could, and they were selling them. They started making furniture and stuff out of them and calling them Blue Mountain Pines.
Well, you remember our basement in Tennessee. Dad and I paneled that entire basement with boards that we had cut from pines that we had gotten from up there in that Dix Creek country, up there above, at Unaka.
Yeah.
And it's gorgeous wood, but it does the same thing out here. A friend of mine had a whole bunch of that cut and he stacked it outside and they were going to like repanel their kitchen with it or something. And if you let it sit in the sun, all those cool blue streaks go away. So you gotta keep it you gotta tarp it if you're gonna keep the blue streak. But
hang on a minute, Mike. Yes, I did. But you know what, Mike? I missed. I recorded it, and then I stayed up till wee hours in the morning watching it. And I'm going to tell you, congratulations on that. I was kind of pulling for you guys, to be honest. But it was a hell of a game. The United States won the first round, and Canada won the second round. It was quite the hockey game. At least I thought it was.
I don't get a lot of hockey on my TV. I don't know why.
Well, if you don't get, I don't know out there. Back here, if you don't get certain channels, you don't get it. I don't get to see it as much as I used to, but sometimes it's on ESPN now. But you got to just catch it. And every once in a while, it'll be on TNT here. And if it's a really important game, they think they'll get enough people watching. ABC shows the game. ABC showed the games the other night because it was a big deal. But
so anyway, I assume that when Mike's saying it was a good old fashioned hockey game, there was some like gloves coming off and some fisticuffs and.
Not really this game. But the first time they played last week, within the first, what was it, Mike? The first 3 minutes, there were 3 fights. And I mean, it was just as soon as the hockey puck dropped, one of the American guys chucked the gloves and
they went at it.
And then as soon as they got going again, his brother did the same thing because there was 2 brothers playing on the same team. Turns out their father played on one of these kind of tournaments years ago, and he did the same thing. But then there was one more, and I can't remember who started that last one. But within I don't know, it was like 9 seconds worth of actual hockey game, 3 fights started. And then it was pretty much over. It was it was a hard-fought game. The other night, I don't know if there were. I don't think there were any fights. Nothing that got out of hand. There's a little bit of pushing and shoving, but my God, there were some hard hits, man. When they got somebody lined up to where
they were checking them into the wall.
Oh man, I saw somebody get hit, and I swear it looked like they flew about 10 feet before they even hit the wall. It was like a boing, like a ball coming off. It was something. But
my wife and daughter and all the grandbabies are going skating today.
Speaking of bouncing,
I hope I hope they don't get. I don't like. There's like, yeah, we got like 17 broken bones, and
Do any of them actually skate, or all of them
my
skate?
wife skates beautifully. Um, the grandbabies probably can do it beautifully because they just can do stuff like
Well,
that.
they'll learn real quick if they can't, and they don't fall far, so they
My
don't.
my my Caitlin daughter, she grew up most of her time in the desert, so
Good point.
but she has skated, so it's not like, and they're like, do you want to come? And I'm like, number one, I'm on the show with Tim. And number two, I've never been on a pair of those in my life. And my ankles, I don't think would take it anymore.
I'm
So
gonna tell you something, my brother. You and me, you and I, neither one need to be on skates right now. I can tell you that for a fact.
I'm like,
Those days are over.
I have enough hobbies that would hurt me that I don't need to add
Yeah,
skating to the
right,
list.
exactly. The one time I tried to ride a skateboard, I fell and broke my wrist. So
We had one of those when we were living in Montana when I was a boy. We had one of our friend families came over, and one of the boys brought a skateboard, and we had a little tiny sidewalk that went around our house, and I was zooming around on that thing, and I hit one little piece of 1/4 inch gravel and stopped suddenly and like hit hard, like flat on my back, and
yeah, knocked the wind out of you.
and it knocked the wind out of me. And Dad came out and grabbed me, and I didn't cry or nothing. And he gave me a bear claw over that deal.
So after that, you fell every time you did it, so if you get another bear claw. That's why. That's how come I was a chubby kid,
I
probably.
still have that bear claw.
Oh, that kind of bear claw.
No, an
I
actual,
was thinking of a face.
not a daggone pastry, an actual bear claw.
See, that's the difference.
Like here, you
Myth.
didn't cry or nothing, so I'm giving you a warrior's totem here. There you go.
That's a lot better than a pastry. I mean, but
Yeah,
we
I mean,
didn't.
if I
We
still
didn't have,
had a bear claw pastry from 1974, that would probably be a bad deal.
see, Carol said she was thinking of the pastry too.
Yeah, when I say bear claw, I mean bear claw.
Tina said she used to skate when broken hips weren't a concern. I got you there. It's exactly my idea. And Carol said she was thinking of the same kind of bear claw pastry. See, we didn't have any bear claws in my house, so I wasn't going to get a bear claw from anybody.
Well, Dad had got a great big old black bear up in the North Fork of the Flathead, and he gave me one of those big old claws, and I still have it. So,
well, I have to ask a question then. What happened to the hide from that bear?
don't have a clue.
Interesting.
Don't have a clue, buddy.
Working on something.
I don't know what happened to all that.
I am really surprised that wasn't hanging on the wall somewhere or doing something.
Well, we never had any of that in the house, as you recall.
Well, I know, but you didn't. No, I don't mean it hanging on the wall. I shouldn't have said it that way. What I should have said was just somewhere wrapped up in a chest or something, like a buffalo robe, for example, or a beaver pelt.
Yeah, I mean, we had that kind of stuff, but
yeah,
but it didn't hang on the wall.
No, you didn't. I didn't mean it. I really didn't mean it that way. I shouldn't have said it that way. But
there was never one head hanging in our house. Not that I.
Oh, no, and I wouldn't have expected that. They're never in mine either. The closest thing I ever did to that was I just cut some horns off, and they're hanging. They're back here on the shelf.
You can't even see my son's walls. for all the things.
Bear paw cookie sounds good right about now with my coffee. I'd love to have a damn good donut right now, Mike. I'm gonna be honest with you, but
I
that's
just
how
ate
much.
I just ate me a great big old ginormous leftover ham sandwich.
Oh man,
And man, was that good.
hopefully that's not. It's well preserved and not something's gonna make you sick again.
No, it's
Hey, I got a question for you. What about food and
so you're
cooking?
supposed to cook ham?
Oh, not always. No. Um, you ever make? And I know you've seen the cooking cowboy guy do it, Ken Rollins. You ever make two? Let me say this right. Two ingredient biscuits.
2 ingredient biscuits. I don't
Yeah,
know what that
you use
means.
flour and whipping cream. Nothing else. No lard. No nothing else in the. Well, I'm
Never
gonna.
even heard of it.
Well, me either till the
I
other day.
make sourdough biscuits, but
But do you use anything? Do you put lard in your flour when you do sourdough biscuits, or shortening or anything?
um some kind of oil and butter, but
Okay.
not. I don't use lard. We
Well,
don't have.
I was
I haven't
watching.
seen lard in so long I can't even remember.
Well, I finally bought some because I'm going to get back to old fashioned something. But that I was watching the Appalachian lady, you know, the blind pig lady, or the one that talks about Appalachian
Right.
culture. I can't think of her name. But she was talking about showing ways that they made biscuits when she was growing up. And one of the ways she showed was this two ingredient method where she just used self rising flour and whipping cream, nothing else. She just a heavy cream. Uh,
Yeah.
so heavy cream, call it whipping cream on there. So
Right.
then I was just on the internet a day or two later, and I saw Ken Rollins making them that way too. So
Well,
sometimes he does it, but I don't know when or how often. But so I'm gonna try some, see how they turn out.
Kent can make a biscuit out of anything.
Well, I know, I figured that, but if
And
he's trying this method, I figure it's worth trying. I mean,
yeah,
if he
I never even heard of it.
one of those two, I ate enough donuts on Friday morning. I'm good for the weekend.
Eh,
How many is that, Mike? Just out of curiosity, is there a set number? Can you throw out a number about how many that might be, or is that something that's not? Is that secret and you don't really want to tell? Because I understand if Diana's listening, you might not want to say. Oh, Tina said somebody should have cooked it. Well, I suspect it got cooked before it was sliced into a ham sandwich. For donuts, we celebrated for team. Oh, okay. Well, good. That's a good. Now, tell me the number. You're
Well,
ball. You're not talking. You're hedging here. You're pushing that number question, right? 4 donuts. Oh, 4 donuts. Okay, I got it. I misread that. I read that
that
as
many.
F4.
That many. He's that many. He had
I
that
don't.
many.
You know what? I don't believe that. I don't eat 4 donuts very often in my day, but I have. I know good and well that I've had at least 4 donuts. Anyway, I was going to say something, tell something else. Let me look on my desk here.
Man, we have swirled around in all kind of directions this morning.
Well, this is the
I'm
howdy.
sorry I even started it.
No, this is just the howdy wake up morning. I got my show ready. I'm going to get ready to throw it up here. And I got
Okay,
a little,
you get ready to throw it up. I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee.
you go do that because I got some morning business to cover. I can get, why is it not starting? Oh, it did start. My goodness. Tim, pay attention. How am I going to do this so it's, I don't need that over there. Let's do it over here. I'm talking to myself, guys. Just bear with. I do that a lot. Okay. Present slides.
Did you just say you were talking to yourself?
I said I was, and
So
I said
I walked around Baumgart's feed store yesterday, not all day, in the morning,
talking to yourself.
wandering through the aisles, talking to myself. Where the heck is the vet tape at? Where's the vet tape? And I was just like walking down the aisle, saying, and I was talking out loud, and I passed a guy from town there, and he's like, "Why are you talking to yourself?"
Because nobody else will
And I'm
listen.
like, "Cause I'm losing it or something." He's like, "That ain't gonna help you find that."
Well, it might. It might. You might remember something.
And I kept talking to myself. And finally, one of the gals that worked there that was wandering around the store was like, "Well, let me help you. Let me show you where that's at." I'm like,
See, it worked.
and I bumped back into him and I said, "See, talking to myself got her to like help me find it."
Exactly. Somebody heard you, and there they were. All right. I wanted to start out by normal stuff here. Hit that
Why
like
is
button.
there a sheep on that picture?
Well, you'll know just in a minute. But give me just a minute. You got your coffee
Oh my
faster than I
God.
got two things. Subscribe to the channel, please, and leave a comment. 7 letters, 7 words is apparently the key to that. So I didn't make up a sentence. It could be like, I sure do like Tim and Mark's. That'd be good. I think that might be 8. So make it 9. And that'll work. Apparently, that throws it right out there into the whole YouTube algorithm universe and gets it scattered around everywhere. Okay, why is there a sheep on my show? Mark said. Well, here's why. I'm just wanting to talk about. I started doing this a while back and then I stopped. But this is, things that happened on February 22nd in history. First off, this is
that Dolly?
Huh?
Is that Dolly?
Yes, it is. So just don't give a secret away.
Yeah, I'm not giving your secret away.
Anyway, this is the official day George Washington was born. And this is in 1819, the Adams-Onis Treaty was signed that gave the United States Florida from Spain, and I about to.
It was that late?
Yep. But see, if it hadn't been for that, there wouldn't be no Disney World in Orlando.
Well, it'd all be in Spanish. You'd just have to go.
Well, it could be. Yeah, that's possible. 1879, the first Woolworths 5 and dime store opened in Utica, New York. Put that in there just for you and Chuck, Tina. And you know what? I read about that.
Out of the Woolworths.
So you got pennies at your home in your town, and they got Woolworths in theirs. And here's the cool thing about that. I never thought this, but Woolworths at that time became like the world's most successful store. The world's most successful store. Apparently, they started opening them in Europe, and they just went crazy over there for Woolworths. I personally think it had something to do with those hardwood floors that smell like a leather sole shoe with bubble gum rubbed all around. But that's just my opinion. That's a line from a song by Nancy Griffith. And where she goes,
going down to the 5 and dime.
That's it. She went to England, got off the tour bus, and lo and behold, there was a Woolworths, where she went inside and proceeded to buy all manners of plastics items. Okay, tragic events that happened. I thought I'd throw some of these in there because everything don't always go right. 1943, the Nazis executed the White Rose, which was a German resistance group. I don't know how many people, but quite a few, I think. 1944, this one I thought was really tragic. The U.S. Army Air Force, and this happened way more than we talk about anyway, but they accidentally bombed Dutch cities and killed over 800 civilians. Now, what I find amazing about that is,
hell, that ain't even there.
Huh?
I mean, that ain't even in the right spot.
No, it probably. I just wonder if it had something to do with Operation Market Garden because they.
I assume so.
And then what's really I don't know if this is amazing because it was war, but the Dutch are some of the most, they respect and honor our soldiers and the graves of our soldiers probably as much as anybody, better than we do.
Yeah,
Uh,
way better.
they get out there and literally cut grass with scissors and stuff
Them
around.
and Koreans, they both
Who?
South Koreans
Oh yeah, they're
and
that way. So anyway, moving out of those more tragic events, 1980, Mike, I thought this was appropriate. USA hockey team defeated the Soviet Union in the Miracle on Ice hockey tournament, which went on to become famous in movies and other things.
my father and I watched every one of those episodes
I
on.
remember
I
that was
think it
that
was
was a
on
heck of a game.
CBS Sports. We never missed a game. It was fantastic.
And you asked me about the sheep, and that's Dolly. 1997, Scottish scientists announced the cloning of a sheep named Dolly, and that's a picture of the taxidermied stuffed Dolly. Hey, I meant that. What is the proper word for an animal, or is there a scientific example, say in a museum, that's been done by a taxidermist? Stuff just doesn't seem like the appropriate word. Is there a better word
No,
for
I
that?
mean, if you had your deer head done by a taxidermist, that would be called a mount. And I
Found it.
don't
Yeah, I
know,
get. Yeah,
but I doubt if that's. I'm sure that museums probably have their own.
but vocabulary. And in 19, I mean, it's not 19. I managed to get over the century mark. In 2011, an earthquake hit Christchurch, New Zealand, killing 185 people. I remember that well. That's not been that long ago. Tina said in Lake Placid, she watched him too. Tina, how far away from Lake Placid are you guys? Maple Bacon said, I bet there's lots of fighting in that game. I bet there, I can't remember,
Carol
Mike.
said
Sure
that one of the hockey players came from her high school.
do what?
From her,
Oh, oh,
it
yeah.
came from her junior high.
So he came. Oh, that's cool, Carol. That would be pretty impressive. Mark, oh, Rizzioni, I can't think was he who was one of the captains, I believe, on the team. He was at the hockey game the other night.
Seriously?
Yeah, he was the honorary captain for the U.S. team, and the great one, Wayne Gretzky, was the honorary captain for the Canadian team.
Cool.
So it was they
That's
I
that,
think they did that right. I mean, it was.
that's very cool.
She said not really. It was before pros played in the Olympics, so they were college kids. Well, Tina, that was always debated though whether the Russian players were actually college students. On our case, it was. Most of the
They were
Europeans.
pro. A bunch of them were known pros
Yeah, in
that were
Russia,
playing over here in the NHL.
Tina, that must have been pretty exciting to have the Olympics so close. Yeah, that's why I was wondering just how close they were. Right, they couldn't have been that far away. Oh, Tina's been there. Did you even attempt to go to a game, Tina, or any of the events? Because I've always heard it's usually pretty hard to get tickets, and I remember those games being pretty well attended. I could be wrong.
Dude, it was 1980.
Well, she's my age.
You could still do some stuff then.
Well, yeah, I'm sure that's true, but I think they drew pretty
People
big.
didn't travel all over America to go to a hockey game, and even if it was the Olympics, I mean, it was 1980.
Okay, Mike.
I was still up on the hill turning the dang aerial so that Dad could watch the hockey game.
I guess you were. Mike, you're going to have to explain that to me because I thought you guys would be proud of Gretzky. Tina says I vacationed out at Lake Placid a couple times, but I was in college then, so I had zero money. Totally understand that. I've been there, done that. I used to live on $20 a week, and sometimes that had to count for gas money. But back then, gas was a whole lot cheaper than it is now. Sorry, not no more. Well, you and I are gonna have that discussion next time we talk on the telephone thing, vision. So anyway, we'll move along. So I was going to talk. I started out just thinking about man eaters and all of the. Um,
It
okay.
reminded me of what
I'm sorry. Hang on just a minute. I thought my screen was screwed up. I'm okay though. I think.
you
Um,
just need to go to the next slide.
yeah, I am.
I can't read it, but
Tell me if it changes.
it's in a language I can't read.
Well, it's in the English, but I used a funky font because I thought it'd be kind of bone chilling kind of thing. Anyway, I'll read it. It is uncommon that wild animals prey upon humans, but it does happen. Most of these encounters are the accidental crossing of paths that result in the soft, fleshy human being losing the fight. I added that soft, fleshy human being part. I wrote it all, but I put that in. I didn't read that anywhere except right up here. There was a time when our ancestors were indeed the prey of really big cats, and we're going to go there today. Today, as in this time, it is even rare that humans literally become a sought after source of food for wild animals, but it does happen. And these are some of the stories about when humans find themselves in the wrong place at the wrong time. And we'll eventually talk about some of the people that were tasked with stopping these man eaters and who wrote about them. And I'd like to come back later and talk even more about some of those guys because their histories are amazing. Not just what they did in this regard, but their whole lives were. Jim Corbett served in World War One and World War Two with distinction. I didn't know that. It's amazing.
He
Anyway,
was a stud, man.
so we're gonna, and then Mark. I talked to Mark yesterday, so I was gonna basically start talking about lions and tigers and bears. Oh my! And Mark had a suggestion that was a good suggestion, so we're gonna dive into it a little bit further back. And I may or may not have got what you wanted in here, but I just hit some highlights, and I think this is going to work.
Well, is the rest of your slides in that font? Don't ever use that again. I can't
Well,
even read. I can't even read it, dude.
Well, I didn't know if you were trying. I didn't know if you would read it or not, or could read it. So I didn't know. But I won't use it
Well,
again.
hopefully other people can read it, but I can't read
Well, they
it.
probably can't either. I can read it, but I'll have to read it and let everybody know what it says. So this slide says this is an example, artistic version. Perhaps it looked like this of Dinofelis, which is I can't say all these words as well as you can, Mark. Extinct genus of the saber-toothed cat family. Is it
Macrodontidae.
Yeah, say that again.
Macrodontidae.
Macrodontidae. For some reason, my tongue just doesn't roll across some of those. And it was widespread in Europe, Asia, Africa, and some parts of North America, I guess, about 5 million to 1.2 million years ago. So a long time. Early Pleistocene to early Pliocene to Pleistocene. And fossils very familiar to Dinofelis have been found from Lothgam range back around 8 million years. And I'm going to show you something about that just in a moment. Early man was indeed on the menu. I guess there was early man then, early version of what we came to be. His varied size with a similar range of sizes, basically, he averaged about the size of the Panthera group now. So they could have gotten up to the size of a jaguar.
300 pounds was what they weighed. About 300 pounds.
Yeah, that's what I got here. 330-pound, maybe.
And they definitely killed and ate human beings.
Oh yes, they did indeed. And we were probably.
But our ancestors, not us. I mean,
Right. Not Homo sapiens or not whatever we are now.
it started with the Australopithecines and it went
Yeah.
all the way up to one of the Homo habilis or Homo whatever. But they
But
definitely they didn't specialize on hunting humans, but they were definitely they found enough fossils of the fossil specimens of humans that have been killed by these cats that they were definitely on the menu.
hang on just a minute. I've skipped something here. Mike sent me something. Mike said $20 a week. That would be awesome. How much gas did you get for that, Tina? And then Tina says, I filled my car tank a couple of times. Of course, because I drove 80 miles a day to and from school. I drove that further than that to get to school every week, but I didn't have to do it every day. And I was driving a little Toyota Corolla station wagon. So anyway, moving on. I'm gonna try to keep up with. So if you got questions or something, bear with me. I'll try to get to them, guys. Okay, so we were definitely prey to these guys, and there's no telling how many or what do I even say humans? I guess they were humans.
Hominids.
Hominids that these guys ate. And some of the proof Mark was just talking about, fossil records. Okay, I got it. This I don't know.
I mean, it's pretty rare to become a fossil, and when you
Right.
find several fossils that have definitely been killed by that cat, that means it probably happened fairly regularly.
This is a cave or a fissure, an opening in Kenya, which is at Lothagam area near the southwestern shores of Lake Turkana. I don't. I don't give you all the other details. It's located between. Anyway, it's in Kenya. I don't need. I shouldn't have added all that other in there. It's just filler. But this is one of those places where they found that. They found things like. I think I don't know if these guys had a big enough mouth, Mark, but did these guys were they a skull piercer kind of
Yeah,
guy?
they caught him by the head.
Yeah. Generally,
Most of the fossil evidence they found, it's got puncture marks in the skull.
which I guess years ago, some of the earlier anthropologists thought that just meant they'd been in battle or somehow died of other traumatic things, but now they realize that that's what was happening. These guys were being eaten. So then we move up a few million years and we head into the Megatherian. I can't, again, I'm not going to say that right.
Yeah, it's pretty good. Megatherian.
And these guys were a bigger saber-toothed cat that lived in Eurasia and Africa, and maybe some in North America. Again, about the same time period, Pleistocene to the Pleistocene. Say that, Mark. Pleistocene with the T. Pleistocene? No, that ain't right.
I can't read it, so I don't know.
Well, I got Pliocene here, and this one is
Pleistocene, and they definitely lived in North America.
So why am I saying that wrong? Why is that so hard this morning? And again, this is a skull. This part's right. The depicted critter over here is again, they're not what I read, and I couldn't find the good book. It's in a box still apparently, but what I read was they think they might look like jaguars, that sort of a cat.
That's the good book.
And
if you're looking at,
I don't think there's any evidence of skin left anywhere that they found yet that they can prove that. Yeah, that book. I've got a copy of that too.
Yeah, they just look like. Yeah, I got beat up by your wife about that book. So,
well, not really.
Yeah, I mean they're just taking extant animals and applying that to an animal, that sort of kind of looked like it, that lived in a certain kind of habitat, and they're extrapolating.
Yeah, and these cats stalked and hunted. I mean, they almost had to be camouflaged in some fashion. They're cryptic fur colors or something. So they very well could have been like this. They could have been more striped. They could have been tawny colored like a mountain lion. But I mean, somehow they matched. They fit into their environment. I mean, that's how it works.
Well, most people don't understand that saber-tooth cats.
Okay,
You just jump forward like two
yeah,
or three slides.
I'm having trouble with my arm here. Bear with me. This is
The most people only think there was one saber-tooth tiger. It wasn't a tiger.
no.
Not even remotely closely related to it. But
I wonder when they started calling them tigers.
But there were dozens of species of saber-toothed cats that lived over the eons.
Yeah, big, small to big.
Yeah, and then they got ginormous, and I don't think there was a whole lot of interaction with human beings between those and the big ones, the Smilodon, the big saber-toothed cats. But
Yeah,
there might have been some.
And if you look these guys up,
There's no evidence of it yet, but
you'll see a lot of pictures of them feeding on carcasses at places like, the La Brea tar pits, for example, or, some place where they can get bigger critters down and that sort of thing. So, but anyway, this guy, they think this guy was about the size of a jaguar. And again, the picture is just possible, but the skeleton is correct. What I really like this idea once you said it, because I don't know if I told you this or not, but the other day I watched it. I got caught part of a David Attenborough special. It was on some PBS, I guess, and he was going through. And they were animating these skeletons and things of creatures that we never saw. And like the dodo bird, for example, they've taken they used computer graphics and they created a dodo bird there, and he was interacting with them on the floor of the museum. Well, then he went on down the aisle and he came to a smilodon, and in his case it was a smilodon, and that thing came alive, and it was like it was stalking him down the hallways. It was actually kind of creepy. I mean, it was so real. But it was really cool.
You're gonna have to send me that one.
Do what?
You're gonna have to send me a link to that one.
I will. I'll pull that up and I'll do that. It was really good. So anyway, we had these guys, and then like I said, I wasn't really going to go to the Smilodon part, but I had to throw it in there. Teddy wanted me to, so I did include it. And let me get my cursor right here, and I won't mess this up again. Why am I not able?
I don't know.
I know you don't know. So you guys are still in the right place, and I'm in the way wrong place. Okay, maybe this will still work. Because you guys are okay. So if I go to the next slide, it didn't work. Crap, hang on. I'm gonna have to undo my arm here because apparently I can't drive with this thing in a sling. I thought this would work out. So anyway, some of the Smilodons were even larger than the other guys, I guess. And something that was a big deal, and I didn't get into a lot of detail about this, but made these guys more likely to have eaten humans, as well as many other species, human hominids, as well as other species, was the literal size of their mouth. Apparently, the Smilodons had a gape factor of much bigger than some of the other ones, at least by skeletal remains. And the teeth and everything were a little bit different. One of the things I learned too from reading all this, and you probably knew this, but these saber teeth were not they were kind of fragile in a way. They weren't able to just slash and grab and do some of the things that some people might think. But what they really used them for was they'd latch onto a critter's neck or part of the skull, and they could just chomp and go right through it. But I guess there was a lot of twisting and turning at that point. They could break off. Correct me if I'm wrong, but did I not see or read that some of these teeth were replaceable? I think some of these teeth could grow back. At least I saw a skull that looked that way.
Yeah, I don't know of anything like that, but
I'll have to show you. I'll have to find that and show
they
you.
broke them. They broke them off fairly regularly on.
They did.
I mean, they say they used them to puncture the neck area of
Right.
very large prey like young mammoths and bison and things of that nature. And it was a slashing kind of deal. It was a sharp tooth that was thin, but it wouldn't take much of a blow to break that or a twist to break that tooth off. And a lot of the skulls they found do have broken teeth in them, but I don't think they were replaceable. I think they're just like other mammals. They had a set of teeth, and that's what you got.
If I can find that picture, I'll show you real quick what I'm talking about. Again, I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying I thought I saw a picture that they were showing an example of that. Good morning, Kay. I don't think I said hi, but I saw that while you think smilodons are cool, you wouldn't want one chasing you, and I think that's probably a good. I suspect that that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think you'd walk by a shrubbery and they'd jump out and have you. They were kind of like ginormous bobcats in a way. They just kind of apparently they hunted, they didn't do long runs or anything like that. They were ambush predators.
Okay, because I want to show this, let me come back to that.
But they've never found any evidence that they killed human beings that I'm aware of.
Smilodons?
Yeah, Smilodon. And they were a North American, South American creature. They didn't live in Europe. And
right, they were this new world kind of creature. Here's that picture I was talking about. See that lower? Well, actually, in both of those, you can see a replacement tooth coming in.
I'll be darned. Well, I wonder if those were just young animals that they were replacing teeth as they aged, like normal young mammals.
Well, that's possible. I mean, it doesn't say that, but that is possible that they were young, because that would make sense. I mean, they'd shed them just like baby teeth. I mean, all critters that I can think of today do that. But but I'll have to go back and read and see if that's what they were referring to. But I saw that and I thought, wow, that's kind of interesting. I didn't know that happened, but that makes more sense. All right, I'm going to go back to our regularly scheduled program. Oh, well, good job, Timbo. I shut it down. I got to go back to it. So anyway, here we go. Well, Bowie, you get back to the right spot. All right, now this will be a little bit tricky because I got some stuff I want to read off screen, more important than what I had on screen. but I just didn't want to try to put it all on there. All right, there we are. Now, I should be able to do this probably easier than I was doing it before. Um, okay, I think all the big cats are pretty cool. Carol said, I'm going to read it. I can really see the resemblance between Smile. He thinks so, Carol. Well, I just don't tell him any different. If you put that smile on in a comfy chair and got him a couple of treats, that'd be possibly hard to tell apart. You know what, Carol? You got a good point there. That might be right. A comfy chair and a treat would be critical in that role. Although the smile on might require larger treats than Teddy. So let's move on to where I was headed. Well, what first off, Mark, you got anything else you want to add there? Because I know you are
No,
well.
I just wanted to make the point that cats have been hunting us as long as we've been us.
Yeah, they're not the only thing. I mean, there were
And they,
wolves,
and they still hunt us.
and they still hunt us. Bears, wolves, those kind of critters have been known to prey on humans, and you know, the occasional oh there you are, chomp chomp kind of thing, but not like cats. I think big cats made a they may have even earned their part of their living at one time. So moving right along, let's
Yeah,
talk.
like these things are really easy to catch. Let's grab us one.
Yeah, hey, look, there's three of them,
And
and they're really soft and
that
chewy.
one's running away from me. So it triggered my predatory response, and
Oh, let's go get them.
I can't even help myself. Just
Oh,
like
look at
a
that
cat.
one. Look at
Just
that
like
one.
my daughter's cat last night. I was flicking my hands at him and he couldn't help himself. He had to jump at my hands. He just can't help himself.
They just can't help it. So think about that. You're a young prehistoric hominid. And you're swinging on the tire swing out back, and one of these guys is creeping along and says, "Oh, look,
Look at that thing flitting about.
you're going to get at." So anyway, moving on to the modern lines. I just started with I just started with lines. I meant modern cats, but I started with modern lines, and I've got several cases that I wanted to talk about that I've not, some of which I had never heard of, but are fairly famous.
And Kay, you're right that all species of extant cats can successfully interbreed and provide viable offspring, that's not true of most mammal orders.
That's true. I don't think black bears and grizzly bears can interbreed, can they?
Well, they might be able to do it, but their young aren't going to be able to keep on going, which is what is different about kind of like felids.
Yeah. Good point.
They don't make mules, they make a new creature.
They don't make mules. Okay, so I want to talk about this particular group first, and this is. Let me see if I've got a slide because I can't right now. I can't see my slides. Yeah, the man-eating lions of Nimjabi, and again, this is in that same part of the world, in Kenya and that area. And this was actually a pride of lions. This is what these guys are well documented. Now, some of the dates varied a little bit toward whether it was 10 years or 12 years that they were really raising hell with people, but they think that they're responsible for at least 1,500 deaths. And I say deaths because sometimes there's not evidence that they always ate the humans. Sometimes they just killed them and grabbed the next one. I mean, they've been known to do that. And but a lot of times they were doing this for food, which is one of the things that makes them this different than just the idea that wild animals don't kill humans unless you surprise one or walk up on the mama grizzly bear. That's not always true. The job of killing or stopping this problem, and this was in the 40s, and I think it started like in 32, and they think it's ended about 42, 44, somewhere like that. And since that was during World War II, that's probably not 100% accurate. But that it was the problem with stopping this. They sent a game warden in, and they had other game, what they call game wardens or game. Give me a word, Mark. Not game wardens, but well, maybe game wardens, gamekeepers or whatever. They sent a gentleman by the name of George Rushby in to see what he could do to stop this, and what he ran into was that it was really hard to get anybody to talk to him about this, which reminds me of a book, a book I've read, because they thought it was witchcraft, and they thought if they told him about it, then that would bring more evil upon themselves. So a lot of the locals wouldn't talk about it, even though their mother-in-law got carried off yesterday, or three children. They had 4 children out of 7 left because 3 of them got at. But eventually, George Rusby started working on ending the problem, and he had to kill approximately 22 lions to break the pride up and scatter them to the wind, what was left of them, and that was the only way. That's when they finally stopped. This big killing spree ended, and there's actually a study going on right now in Tanzania where some of this happened, where they actually believe that there are cases where lionesses and lions, males and females, I guess mostly lionesses, are actually starting to teach their young that, as we've said before, maybe we are easy to catch and tasty. That they actually believe there have been prides of lions that are starting to look at humans as a food source again, not just the occasional fancy catch. And I'm not surprised by that, but I had never heard anybody say that out loud before.
Well, and this just flies in the face of typically when you hear humans talk about big cats or whatever that have hunted and eaten human beings, that they're old and sick and their teeth are broken off and they just can't catch their normal prey anymore.
Right.
And, I mean, this was an entire population of lions that fed on human beings.
Yeah, that's what this pride specialized in, and they
Or
raised.
how dare you human beings live out there because there's supposed to be other things out there, and it's like, no, we're part of the whole system. Sorry.
Well, the number I've got up here was they know of at least 1,500 deaths, but they actually a lot of the locals that were involved or not now. I guess most people are no longer living that were involved in this particular group, but they think it could have been upwards of 2,000 and maybe even more, because again the villagers didn't like to talk about it.
Right.
And even though people were getting carried off out of their village, they weren't going to talk about it because they thought that would just bring the evil down upon themselves. And if you're interested in that whole story is fascinating. There is a movie out about this that's supposedly fairly accurate, and then there's a National Geographic study about these lions and their descendants, I guess you might say, and that's where the study is going on about how they're concerned that some of these lionesses are teaching their young to, if you catch one of these critters out in the woods by itself, just grab it because they're good to eat. Unless they smoke too much, then they might taste bad. Just threw that in there. And then we got 2 of the most famous lines out there, The Ghost in the Darkness, which was also the name of a movie, title of a movie. And these are the lions of Tsavo. And starting in about 1898 and for the next 8 or 10 months, these 2 lions, which turned out to be siblings, brothers, um, just wreaked havoc along the British railway system. They were putting in bridges to cross the Savo River. And within 9 months, they know these two alone killed at least 140 people. And it's now thought that some people think they only actually ate 34, but that's because those were eaten in front of people. That
Yeah.
these lions got so
Mostly they hauled them off.
mostly they hauled them off, but these lions got so, I don't know what's the word. Brave is a human term, but they actually ate some of their captures right beside their own huts and within the village itself. I can't imagine how terrifying that was. These,
Well, in the movie, it's all happens around the bridge at Savo, and
yeah, that's not true.
these two dudes actually followed the railroad as it was being built, and just kept getting after people. Not just at Savo, but beyond Savo Bridge.
And the railroad company, which was British back then, and of course, and one of the articles I read said, one, they didn't let, generally speaking, natives weren't allowed to have guns. Imagine that. And the British always wanted to, conquer everything. They kind of had that superior sort of mindset. So they always had to bring in hunters and things to take care of stuff like this. And that made me, but they brought in Indian workers. A lot of the workers on this railroad were actually off the subcontinent. They brought them in from India. And at some point, they literally walked off the job. They said, hell with this. We're not, this is just too dangerous. And because it was happening like every night, these guys didn't just eat once a week or once a month. It happened a lot. And they were, I mean, to me, they seemed to use, again, to use a human term, very intelligent. Well, I guess that fits. And they learned to avoid almost every kind of trap and avoidance system that they used. Uh, and I don't know if Mark, I don't know if you can tell me if this is, I've read the book. I can't remember exactly. In the movie, one of the people they brought in to hunt the lions actually was killed by the lions. And then the other guy,
Yeah,
Johnny,
he never existed. The Remington character, he never existed.
yeah, that was just in the movie. I thought that's what I thought.
Yeah,
John
I
Henry
mean,
Patterson.
the story. If you read the book,
Do what? I have
if
read
you
it, but I don't.
read John Patterson's book and the books that were written about at the same time by other people, the story itself is almost unbelievable. And then they made the movie, which I was so excited when they made that movie, and they made it even more unbelievable. I mean, they brought in characters that never even existed and things like that. But it was a bad deal. It it was weird because the two lions involved were maneless.
Yeah,
They were big adult males, both of them siblings that were not totally maneless, but the mounts they have at the field museum have suffered many abuses, but they weren't great big giant maned males like normal. They were just a little odd.
they were. Yeah, and which was they thought they didn't know if that had something to do with their their actions or their. Uh, I can't think. I had the word in my head. Now I dropped it. That caused them to do this or not, but they were just like Mark said, a little different. And they found after the fact, Patterson, I believe, discovered a cave, and they found more evidence that these guys carried some of their prey back to this cave and ate them. They had a lair, in other words, And so while there might have been 34, there's probably a whole lot more of them that got eaten, um, but because they carried them off and did the deed. Okay, let me see where the next one is here. Next slide, please. And I can't pronounce this guy. I don't know if it's Chingy Charlie or Chingy Charlie. He's also called the White Lion. That's not an actual picture of him. That's another example of a white lion. Very light colored color face. Not albino, but a light color face. And they also recognized him, one, by his color. He stood out amongst the others, and he had like a half a tail. His tail wasn't normal length, so they picked him out. He was in northern Rhodesia and Zambia. Marcus, this part of the area you hunted? Because
No,
you weren't in Zambia, were you?
no, I was in South Africa.
And this was in 1909, and he eventually actually had a couple of other males that hooked up with him and they hung out together in a bachelor group. And they think they killed and ate at least 90 people before he was stopped or before they were stopped. And I can't remember if this. I know Patterson wasn't involved in this. I can't remember who the hunter was in this case. I had never heard of this one, but there's a whole bunch more. If you look them up, if you are interested, you can go into. Um, there's a couple of web pages about most of these animals, most of these man eaters, and it's amazing. And when I get to the leopard part of this, I think you're going to be more than amazed because it was a big deal. And I'll be there in a moment. I'm just trying to see if I've got anything else I want to talk about. This white lion, Chingy Charlie, or however you pronounce it, Chingy Charlie, he actually has a YouTube page, which I thought was not YouTube, Facebook, which I thought was kind of odd. I want to say interesting, but I actually think it was more odd. I just, I was really surprised that anybody would do that. Let's see here. Next slide, maybe tigers. Yeah, we'll get to that. I'll move into that in a minute. Let me stay up here about the lions first. Mark, you got anything else to add to that or want to discuss about lions?
No, I mean, they've been, the extinct lion species like the European lion were definitely hunting hominids as well. Neanderthals, Cro Magnon, modern humans basically. In Europe and Asia and maybe North America, I assume that there's the occasional, once people got to North America, there were American lions and the biggest of all the lions. And they've, big cats have always been a problem for human beings.
Yes, they have. Yeah, I found a couple more things here I'll add.
He asked who's got a duck. My wife has a duck on her phone.
Yeah, I heard her calling there just a minute ago. They got a list of some of the most famous man eaters that they named. One of them was named Osama, and he actually was in Tanzania in 2002 to 2004. And during that time period, they're pretty sure he killed over 50 people in the local villages. And I'm not sure. And they think he was just like 3.5 years old when he started or when they shot him. And love them or not love them or think it's cruel or inhuman, but that's pretty much the only way they stop. Once they get the taste for human flesh and realize just how easy these critters are to catch, they're pretty much going to stick with it. There was another one named Missouri Monty. Again, Zambia, and this was in 29. And they named him Missouri Monty because he was near a mission named Masoro, excuse me. I'm probably still not saying it right. And I don't know if it just tells he killed a lot, but then eventually he did stop. He just disappeared. So maybe something else got him. There's also one called the Lion of Mafui. Again,
Yeah, they'll kill on each other too.
they
So
will.
that might have been why he stopped. Or the hyenas got him, or who knows what.
This lion of Mafui was in Zambia, the Longawa River Valley. I'm not saying that right.
Good morning, John.
And he was there in 19. Good morning, John. This happened in 91, and he kills at least 6 people, and they evidently managed to get the lion strutted through the center of a village, reportedly carrying a laundry bag that had belonged to one of his victims. A California man on safari, after waiting in a hunting blind for 20 nights, actually shot him and killed him. And another interesting thing about these cats, they didn't just hunt them. They also used traps, gun traps, as they call them, where they would set up a gun, oftentimes designed just for this. But like they might not have a butt stock ever made to hook tie into the ground or bolt onto a board or whatever. And the idea was the lion would break into the trap for something to eat, like a fresh goat, which they didn't really care for. And then when they did, they'd be shot point blank range from a very heavy bore gun in an effort to stop them without somebody actually having to be out there with them. And what they find is these lions tend to be intelligent enough that these kind of man eaters, not just lions, all the big cats, that they learn to avoid these traps, which makes me think about foxes and how hard they are to trap and how much effort somebody actually has to go to keep a fox from digging up your traps. Mark can he can add to that a great deal more than I can. But anyway, these lions tend to be pretty smart in that regard. They're very hard to stop. I think I've got something else I wanted to mention before I move on. Savo. I had something else. I wanted to bring up another point here. Let me see if I can pull it up. I kept a bunch of pages open here just for this very reason. Maybe not. Anyway, look them up if you are interested or want to hear all the details, because I'm skimming over a whole lot of it, and it's I guess I could say it's fascinating. Some people might not see it that way, but I find it quite fascinating that how these things worked. And somewhere here I have a chart. Now I'm gonna move to India, or the subcontinent. Well, here I meant to say that James. This is a little bit about James Corbett, and I want and I think, I'm not sure if he got into Africa. Mainly he hunted in India, and in reading about him, I found that he killed his first man eater in 1907, but it is reported that he actually shot his first leopard when he was like the age of 10, and maybe his first tiger at 12. They weren't man eaters, I don't believe, but they were indeed, big cats. So he was experienced at this, and he's quite involved in most of these stories I'm about to talk about. He killed several tigers and leopards in northern India, and he wrote a book in 1944, which turned out actually to be very successful at the time, and that was the Man Eaters of Kumon, or Kumon, I think is how they said it, and something I listened to about him. Um, and just like a lot of these guys, in later years, he became kind of an outspoken advocate for conservation. And there's actually a game park or a national park named for him in India, Jim Corbett National Park, which I thought was pretty cool. Let's see what else I have here.
Yeah, a
And
good
some,
buddy of mine just was over there. His wife's from India.
oh, really?
He was over there. They went over there for a funeral or for a wedding or something, and they ended up staying for, golly, he works for the department here, and he was gone for like a month. I'm like, how'd you get away with that? But they went to Jim Corbett, and
Oh, cool.
they take tours through the park, and there's wild elephants and tigers and all kind of cool stuff that that are thriving in that spot. There's a lot of India that wildlife has a hard time existing anymore, but
It's a little crowded.
except for cobras and things like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, they do.
yeah, it's a little bit crowded.
The I've got well, again, I'll get to that in a minute. I've got some numbers on how many people were actually killed just by leopards in a moment, and like I said, it's fascinating. I thought I had a little bit more information about Corbett's National Park, but maybe I didn't keep that. But anyway, we'll move
Hey,
down.
Mike.
So some of the famous cats that Corbett was involved in was the man eater of Chumpawat, and they get killed at least 436 victims. And then the real killers and the real man eaters in this part of the world were leopards. And the leopard of Panar killed it. They know he killed 400 victims, and they think more. And the man-eating leopard of
Rudra
Pike had killed at least 125 victims, and again, they think he killed a lot more. When you go out and talk to the natives, in this case, they would talk about them, and they give much higher numbers. According to estimates that I read, since 1875, when they started keeping records of this, they feel like there have been over 12,000 deaths due to leopard attacks, and they consider that a conservative minimum number. So probably a whole lot more than this that we don't even know about. And in this area, these numbers were in India, Nepal, Pakistan, Somalia, South Africa, Sri Lanka, and Zambia.
And they're everywhere. When we were in South Africa, finding leopard tracks was no big deal.
But you didn't see any.
And so we didn't see any. They got drone footage of one night when we were out looking for something else. There were some of the fellows were over flying a drone and saw a leopard, but we, there were tracks everywhere. They were just everywhere. They're extremely abundant in certain places, and they're not that big. But they've killed like a lot of human beings over the.
Yeah, and they're amazing. If you've ever seen one in a documentary or anything, they tend to carry their prey, they're the ones they catch and eat, up into trees, and you'll see them dragging an antelope of some kind or another up a tree that's looks like it's twice the size they
or
are.
A zebra foal or something like that, and they just carry them up into those trees to keep the lions and hyenas from eating them. And I think especially because lions can still climb, but not as well. But they take them out and put them on these like little nimble, thin branches, and then they feed on them out there. And they they're just avoiding other meat eaters that are out there, trying to take their prey away. And
Yeah, because that happens. Wild animals are not opposed to taking somebody else's kill away if they get half a chance. Or hyenas specialize in that. I don't know. Are wild dogs? Do they do carrying as a rule? Well, I mean, by as in somebody else's kill.
I don't know. I assume they would.
So
Heck,
just
heck, my tame dogs will do that if they get a
that's true.
chance.
That's true.
So yeah, I mean, some of these cats that you're talking about, they would, when they were trying to avoid them, they would come into people's homes and catch them and take them out, and
Yeah.
they would stake goats and things outside the home or even in the front room of the home. Like, here, eat this instead. It's tied up. Just eat this. And they'd go right past those and go catch a human and carry him outside. It's a little creepy, actually, when you think about it. Like,
They
I don't like the taste of goat, but I will eat a man or a child or whatever.
Yeah, think about it, Mike. If you're still in here, it's kind of like saying, "Well, I really do like those maple flavored donuts, but man, what I like even better is that oh, I can't think Long John right over there with chocolate on it."
I think Mike's left us,
He
but
may have. I can't see the chat right now, so
he
so
said,
anyway,
"Have a great weekend, everybody." So
do what?
he said, "Have a great weekend, everybody."
Oh,
So I assume he's not here.
so let me talk a little bit about some of these before I move completely into the leopard part. But like tiger attacks in the Sudarbans area of India, which is the border of India and Bangladesh, there have been probably a group of tigers that have killed regularly kill 50 or 60 people a year, and these are tigers that they when they have caught them, found them, shot them, whatever, usually show no signs of being in ill health or broken teeth or any of that. And there's also plenty of other stuff they could eat, but they just prefer to eat humans. And I'm not trying to say all this stuff again just to make some kind of horror film out of this. It's just reality. It says they think about 100 tigers live in this area, and which for a concentrated area may be the highest population left, single population. Um, they're working on that, and the kill rates have dropped, but it's still an issue. The Champawat tiger um, started reportedly killing and hauling men off and women up to 200, and then it was in Nepal, and they actually think they drove it out of Nepal, probably by increased hunting pressure and traps and all kinds of things. And so that's when she moved into this. It was a tigress moved into this area of Champawat, India, and that's when she went on and killed another 436 people or so. And they finally tracked her down in 1907. She was known to enter villages, even in broad daylight, roaring and causing people to flee and panic, which is exactly what they want, because then they can play with something that's moving and chase them down. Jim Corbett was the hunter that stopped her also. And let me read a little bit. Killing her vestments. Her last victim was a 16-year-old girl, and that's how he found the tiger, by following the blood trail. And she did have, in this case, her upper and lower canine teeth on the right side of her mouth were both broken off. Whether that was it or not, I don't know. That's conjecture to me. It might have kept her from killing other things, but I kind of doubt that. I mean, in some cases, maybe yes, but if they can kill a fighting human, and I guarantee you these people were struggling and beating the, swinging arms and kicking feet, I'd say they could catch something else. There was the tiger of Segura. I'm not good with Indian names, so I apologize to the culture and the language and the country. There was tigers of Shalgar, and this was a pair of Bengal tigers that killed 64 people in the eastern part of India. And this is one that this is what the book that Corbett wrote was about these guys, or started with these guys anyway. And I don't have that book. I've not read it, but I got it last night on eBay or somewhere on my Kindle, and I'll be listening to it soon. But like I said, that was a lot of people read and bought that book, and I looked at some actually original versions of that book because we all know I like that kind of thing, and they're pretty expensive. Let's see.
You could read. You could always pick up copies of Capstick's books. He did a whole kind of series on these men and their exploits with man-eating creatures, mostly cats.
Yeah, and some of these so-called professional hunters that were charged sometimes with protecting humans and the people in an area, sometimes they got to be prey also. Sometimes they didn't make it through the hunt.
Yeah.
They weren't always smart enough to outsmart the animal. But and Corbett and these guys, Corbett and Peter Capstick and Carmichael and there's one more I can't think of. But I read Capstick books or stories out of the back of Field and Stream or Outdoor Life magazines for years, and that's what got me interested in some of that stuff originally. And because I was just fascinated by those stories, and I've got 2 or 3 of his books now.
Probably got like death in the long grass and Death in the Silent Places.
Yeah, those are all good ones. So moving on to leopards. I don't know what my next.
I thought we'd have moved on to leopards.
Well, we have, but I wanted to get back to the tigers there a little bit. I have hit on leopards, but I was trying to back up just a little bit on make sure I talked about tigers. Oh, excuse me. But if you look up leopard attacks on Wikipedia, you'll find that as Mark pointed out to me, they've been the most successful, or maybe the most likely to prey on humans that at least been documented, and they've killed thousands of people per year, or not per year, but over time it's been recorded. They kill hundreds per year in some cases. They're very active and they are very efficient critters. And again, if you read some of books like Capstick's got some really interesting stories about leopards in Africa and what they had to do to catch up with them. And they're very, very smart and savvy and hard to hunt in this regard, especially once they get to where this is an issue. But let me see if I got some more numbers here. I think they've got proof. They got proof that leopards or leopard species were killing people back about 1.8 million years ago. Hominids, excuse me. There's a skull that was found. Let's see, 1970. South African paleontologist C.K. Bryan showed that a juvenile individual Paranthropus robustus. Oh, that's actually maybe a hominid.
That's a
SK54.
hominid.
Yeah, that's how it. Yeah, it's how it, and it's numbered as SK54.
It's an argued about genus, but yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Anyway,
anyway, yeah, and with that he says and maybe proved was killed by a leopard 1.8 million years ago. He said the SK54 cranium bears two holes in the back of the skull, holes that perfectly match the width and spacing of a lower leopard's canine. And that's what
whoa,
we're talking about a minute ago. They bite and pierce the skull and then carry you away. Go ahead. You were getting ready to say something, I think.
me?
Oh, I thought you were.
I
Maybe you
just
were.
had a bird strike on the window.
Oh, that's what I heard.
I was wondering if you heard that big thump.
Yes, I did. I didn't know what it was.
Yeah, he's no longer with us,
Uh-oh.
but it's an English sparrow, so
Oh, well,
that's
that's
okay.
yeah, that's okay. Mark and I have a long-standing English or European starling.
I go back and forth between accepting and still disliking them.
Well, we have to kind of accept it.
They're here forever. So I just wish they would eat less of my chicken feed.
We can accept that they're here, but we don't have to like them. I mean, so there's a whole lot in here about the human leopard interaction and conflict. And like I said, there's a chart that lists at least the reported and noted since 1875 of leopard caused deaths, and it's quite extensive. Zambia has only about, on this chart at least, only about 75 or so, Mark. South Africa has 5 since 1992 to, where I lost me, 2003. There was 8. I don't know if it says a leopard or multiple, but they killed 5 people. I'm willing to bet there's more than that. And it's this chart says there's no comprehensive database, and that they feel like these are actually pretty minimum numbers. That they think this numbers are probably much higher because they don't all get reported, and especially in the late last century, and we have no idea before, I guess British colonization and that sort of thing, how many people were killed every year by leopards. So I'm gonna, because I can't hardly talk, I'm gonna quit reading for a minute and close that window and close this window and get back to where I can see what chart's about. So also let's see. Tiger that seemed revenge on the hunter that stole his kill. Well, that's possible. Humans are kind of like going through this the drive-through. They're pretty easy prey. That's very true, Kay. Now, like Mark was saying, and I'm going to close this out, and then my last slide is this. I didn't get to bears. Bears aren't nearly as don't prey on humans nearly as commonly, but I have quite a few stories about bears where they've eaten people, and you hear every year or two or few you hear about a grizzly bear in Yellowstone National Park or someplace like that that's killed a hiker and or a photographer that thought he'd get too close, or some idiot that thinks it'd be really cool to go pet a grizzly bear. But there are cases where they have known to hunt people, and black bears particularly. They think they can be quite predatory at times, and they don't. I don't know if proven's the right word, but I've got quite a bit of proof that shows that there have been black bear kills where the animals were actually stalking the people that they killed, and that happened here in the Smokies a few years ago. There was a young lady, and I believe child. I think they both died. Um, Pretty sure they did. And that bear, there might have been something going on with that bear, but that bear did actually stalk them and consume them, or at least part of them. That's been in the last 10 years, maybe less than that.
Well, no, there's been two. There's been two in the Smokies in the last 2 decades.
Well, there,
Two different incidents, and that Treadwell dude,
yeah,
the grizzly man,
I shouldn't laugh.
that big old. It was an old male bear, 20. I think he was 28. They figure.
Well,
There were two bears involved. One was a juvenile bear that got killed and eaten by other bears at the site. And Treadwell got killed by this big old male grizzly. And so did his girlfriend.
Yeah, Treadwell, just for reference, you guys may know
The grizzly man.
but he was also known as Grizzly Man, and he thought that he could tame a grizzly or live with the grizzlies or whatever. And in the end, he got himself killed and his girlfriend because these are not pets; these are wild animals. And despite the fact that we think somehow we think they've evolved past this, which I'm not sure where we get that, but they're not above eating somebody. And I want to go back to address something Tina was. I can't help it, Tina. Sometimes I do laugh at stupidity. I shouldn't, because but the thing about these people is if they couldn't help it, it'd be different, but they should be smart enough to know not to hang out with grizzly bears. I mean, it's just it's just fun. It's ridiculous. And I have to say, sometimes I think they get what they're asking for. Again, that's not nice, but that's how it is, and I can't help myself. I don't know. Has anybody seen Brenda? I guess she fell out.
Well, they know for a fact that bear killed and consumed both of those people.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. In fact, it's on camera.
They were inside him.
I mean, some of that is on video.
Guys from Alaska Fish and Game and the Park Service had to go and kill that bear which was unnecessary.
Should have been
if that dude hadn't have been there, being who he was. So
makes you wonder if shows like Grizzly Adams.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that helped.
I mean, I think people watch something like that and they think that's really, really real. And I'll be honest,
people think Yellowstone's really real, and that's calves come out of the womb like with ear tags and brands, and they're already 110 pounds. And
as what's his name has made a point of a few times, Yellowstone is not a documentary.
And Kay, that's a wise choice. They should not be owned by individual human beings or a group of human beings even. And they're not all it takes is once.
Yeah, all it takes is one. And I don't know if you guys know this. This is not the only place where these occur, but Tennessee has at least a couple of animal preserves. One of them is elephants, which is kind of cool. I've never been, but there is a pretty large farm that's got retired elephants on it. Former zoo elephants, former circus elephants. And that elephants that can't be released back into the wild, but I guess you could say have earned their retirement or been turned out for whatever reason. Uh, but there's also a couple of idiots in this state that have tiger preserves, for example, or other big cats, and almost all of them ultimately end up with somebody dying at them. They hire these. For example, there was one guy uh, who hired, I think, some local teenagers to feed the animals while he was away, or some when he wasn't around, or maybe just because they wanted to, and they ended up getting killed, or one or two of them did anyway. And then there's been a couple of owners who have operated these preserves, and most of these cats are in cages or some sort of enclosure. But that doesn't mean these people aren't stupid enough to climb in with them, and they've ended up being tiger chow. It's it's crazy what people will do, and I guess in some ways maybe some of them have good intentions, but they get complacent, and I guess if you live with or around these animals long enough, maybe you do think you can talk to them or live with them or something. I don't know, but I mean, just like Siegfried and Roy had those two giant white tigers that they performed with on stage in Las Vegas for years and years, and then one night one of them just turned and mauled one of them. I can't remember which one, but so you just never know. And I've seen videos of these animal trainers that have these grizzly bears that look like they weigh 1,200 pounds, and they're wrestling with them in the yard or putting their head in their mouth. And I can't help but think that that's interesting, maybe even a little bit cool. But I'm sure the day is going to come, if they keep it up, that they're going to end up being, grizzly bait. I just, or a lion bait or tiger bait or whatever it happens to be. Um, and I worry about the same thing I worry about back here. There's always reports of mountain lions back here, which, if they're in the mountains again in a while since, I think that's kind of interesting. I think it'll be a conflict issue eventually again. But a lot of them they find are these lions that have been somehow handed off or sold as pets when they're cubs, and then people figure out when they get older they're kind of dangerous. So what do? They turn them loose in the mountains.
So here's my service announcement.
Go ahead.
Don't own wildlife. Period.
Period.
I don't care if it's this big or this big. That's my service announcement. It is not allowed in this state. Period. You cannot own wildlife. And everybody thinks they want one of these and they want one of those and they want to buy a chimp. I just see Kay talked about, no, John talked about a chimpanzee.
Oh,
we have no understanding of how strong and capable these critters are, and everybody wants to be their friends, and they don't look at the world like that.
No, they do not.
And they might be your buddy for a while, and then they might say, one day you made me mad, and I'm gonna, I have a mule out in the pasture that every time I get upset with him, I guarantee he's putting that away in the back of his mind, and one of these days he's going to catch me. You can't be nonchalant around these critters, and John,
I don't know if it's in that. What a lot of people don't realize, because they've watched too many Tarzan movies, but chimpanzees don't just eat bananas. They actually have proven that chimpanzees.
I've seen videos that National Geographic did of them catching monkeys in the trees,
eating them.
They literally just pull them apart.
Yeah.
Like grab an arm, pull them apart, and eat them as a midday snack.
Yeah, they're incredibly strong, and that has happened where a chimpanzee, like John was saying, has bit somebody's face off, or as somebody else pointed out, ripped their arms off because again they're incredibly strong, and if they're in the wild and they catch another monkey and they decide to have it for dinner, that's what they do. They just rip it apart, and I mean, and people don't realize that just because these are very intelligent animals and perhaps our very distant kin, they're kind of like the cousins you really don't want to invite over because they're going to tear up the furniture and eat you out of the house. Don't mean they're going to knock the wall down and leave. It's not, and we all know if they're out there. We all have those kind of relations. And then there was a lady
all those cousins I wouldn't invite over.
And then there's a lady that climbed into a lion enclosure because she thought it'd get a picture and pet them. And this example happens a lot, not to carnivorous animals. Yellowstone National Park. Mark and I've talked about this in depth, but every year, you see it on the news or you read about it. Somebody gets, and I'm not picking on anybody, but a lot of times there are tourists that don't live in America, like Japanese tourists, for example. They think it's really cool to walk out in Yellowstone, walk up to a bison that's standing 5 yards off the road or laying there sunning, and then they ended up getting gored because these are wild animals. They're not photographed. They're not photo props. You're not at Disneyland, people. This is the real thing. And they're just, it's just ridiculous.
Yeah, we have more deaths from bison and moose and the occasional bull elk in Yellowstone than we ever do from bears. And it's just from people being, well, quite frankly, stupid. They're just, and they're aware that they're not supposed to approach these animals with 100 yards is, I think, the distance they recommend that the Park Service recommends. I would say it should be further than that, but
well, you know how fast they can run,
yeah,
and how high they can jump. I mean, it's just your own father knows a little bit about that because he was charged by. Was it a cow or a bull that charged?
It was a cow that we were at this was in 1972, maybe. We were on our first whirlwind visit to the Rockies.
Tina thinks she is that cousin. I don't know Tina.
And we were at Teddy Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota, and there was wild bison on the park, and there was a fence along the highway, and those bison were behind it, and Dad went down to take photos. and there was a cow that had just given birth. It was a brand new calf. She was still wet with afterbirth. And here come that cow, like hard charging at that fence. And she turned at the fence. And then Dad walked down there again, and here she come, and she turned at the fence. And Dad said, well, I'm going to get pictures of her charging this next time then. And he did.
And he did. I've seen
But
him.
she could have come, because he didn't leave that time. She might have just, I'll guarantee you that fence wouldn't have stopped her. No way.
I mean,
it was a fence built for bison, not for cattle. But she would have gone right through it. I've seen it dozens of times. They don't
see videos of them jumping a fence.
They don't care about fences.
So the main part of that story is
my father was an idiot in that particular case.
Well, I've told this story before too, I think, on here. Phil's dad, you go to the Smoky Mountains, and it used to be you go to the Smoky Mountains and you see black bears, and that was a really big deal.
And you put your hand outside with a cookie
with potato chip.
Yeah.
So Phil remembers this, and there's pictures of this too. sort of backwards running pictures, but pictures. Um, they were at the Smokies, and went on a big family vacation and drove down from Ohio to the Smokies, and they ran into a bear jam along the roads, and Phil's dad decided to get out and take some pictures. Well, he's taking pictures, and he decides to feed them potato chips, get up close. So he starts feeding them potato chips, throwing them out on the road and then walking back and take. Well, then he, gets a little bit closer, and then the bear decides, well, hell, if I can have one potato chip, I should have the whole bag of potato chips. So the picture that Phil's dad got was a big nose right in the camera lens. That bear came and got those potato chips, and he's lucky he didn't eat his dad's lucky he didn't eat his arm off, because you just can't do that crap. And because of that, now bears break out windows and they can get in the cars. And I saw a video of a bear literally opening the car door and climbing inside because it figured out how to open the door. I mean, they're smart, and they will get in there and grab around for your candy bars.
They'll break your windows and get in your car.
And they'll break your window. That's why it's illegal now, or it's against the rules to leave coolers in your back seat now in most national parks that have bears, because the bears have figured out that there's they know what a cooler is. So they'll climb.
So I have a bear cooler story. We had a bear, and it wasn't in bear really what you would consider to be bear country. It was next to bear country. We had a bear that went all the way across a reservoir, swam across the lake or whatever to the prairie side of the reservoir. Had mountains, black bear, lots of black bears. You go down to the base of the mountains, there's a big reservoir, and then on the other side of the reservoir, it's the Great Plains forever. and there's a campground on the east side of that reservoir, and we had a black bear that would swim across that lake, go to the campground, open the coolers up, and bite all the beer cans. And he was literally seeking out. He would sort through all the RC colas and get beer cans and bite them. And there were people taking pictures of him drinking beer in the campground. And he did that for days. They finally called us to come in and deal with him. So I took a trap up there and we caught him, and we took him 110 miles to the west and dumped him out. And I think before we got back to that area, he had already beat us back there, and he was doing the same thing. And he was coming in there in the broad daylight and scaring people, and
yeah, because they learn not to be afraid of humans.
And he took whatever he wanted whenever he wanted, and he knew coolers and Yeti coolers, whatever. He could get in any of them. And it was just and we dealt with that bear, and we dealt with that bear, and we dealt with that bear, and he started getting really pretty aggressive with the people, and we had to put him down. And I've never received so much hate mail in my life.
Well, yeah.
There was a gal in Casper, Wyoming.
I think it's cool to sit there and watch
bears hunt me down and kill me in my sleep or whatever. But anyway,
I think you're right, Kay. I think sometimes the cuteness factor overrides our common sense, if we have any. And you know what? I've got to admit, I've probably been too close to bears myself in the national park, because sometimes you're just there and there they are. And the only time I've ever done, I almost followed a bear into the edge of the woods one day taking pictures, and I realized it was not a good idea, but I saw other people.
I hated Tim.
Do what?
I just want to show you Caitlin. She's getting ready to go ice skating.
Hi, Caitlin. Well, you look good. You look ready for it. Is this an outdoor skating rink?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness. Well, it'll be nice. You look like you're dressed for it.
What's the temperature right now? 23. It's 23 degrees. Heck, it's balmy.
Oh, it's balmy then. I don't know how, that's probably, well, we're 39 unless this isn't updated. So we've gone way up since last.
Hey, you're really balmy.
Well, I hope it melts the snow off my steps out here because I was a little bit worried I couldn't get it all off, and then it froze, and then I was worried about falling and busting my teeth.
Doing another
thing
I
Tim
bet
would
you'd wake the bees up.
do. A-hole. Everybody cover your ears, asshole. John said he was fishing on the North Platte River, and an Angus bull chasing a friend into the river. That's a tame animal, supposedly. Although Angus bulls aren't very tame. They just know humans and know they can catch them.
Fishing on the North Platte, getting chased into it by an Angus bull.
How warm was that water, John? I was gonna add something.
Most of the North Platte I wouldn't trust to keep an Angus bull off of me.
Because he'd come in after you.
Well, because it's shallow enough.
Yeah, that's what I meant. He just wade right in with you. That's what I meant. What else? I saw something else here. Kay said we were talking about cousins not being invited. Case to her and Tina were, and she said she's not sure she may or may not be okay with not being invited. I know the feeling.
Some of my ladies are all dressed up and leaving, going on this ice skating adventure, and the dogs all think they're getting ready to go on their own adventure.
Oh, I bet. Go for a walk.
Hey, have fun. Don't
kill yourself.
We won't.
Yeah, right. Don't get hurt. I said that too the day I rode the lawnmower around the house. Guess what happened to me? I decided to jump it off the back porch the back deck of the shed out here and nearly kill myself. I'm still recovering. So let's skip. So that's we really skipped over all that because it would take weeks to talk about all of it in detail. But if you're at all interested, pick up a Capstick book or Jim Corbett book or one of those guys and read about some of this stuff because the stories are fascinating in how they took place in the human interactions. But it's also, I think it's also amazing that the lengths people go to and how smart these animals can get. But I recommend those books highly, and I would show you some if I had my hands on them. And I've actually got a couple right there on that couch, but I can't reach them from here. So,
well, we have. It occurs here in North America, not just with bears, but with big.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And
what?
With big cats.
And, yeah.
And I've had to deal with some of them, and it's not pretty. And that's
an excellent idea, Tina. I really like that idea.
But I mean, it's just, it didn't just occur over there; it occurs here too.
Yeah, well, it happened here not long ago in California.
The deals, the deal, or Colorado, take your pick, but it's sometimes these large predators just look at us as a food source. Unfortunately,
it's like the black bears and
I'm not. I don't blame them at all. I don't blame us either. I blame some of the people, that the individuals that it happens to because of what their behavior was.
Well, their behavior so often is the reason.
But a lot of those deals that happen with leopards and tigers and lions in Africa or in India or in Nepal, happen at night when these people were sleeping, you know, and so it's a kind of a little bit of a different deal.
Okay, Kay, you're gonna have to explain this a minute. Kay's got cougars are beautiful. How dangerous can they be since they can't? Since they can't growl. Well, that's good, but I'll tell you something about that. If you've ever heard one scream,
They can growl like crazy. Believe me,
they can make some noises that'll absolutely.
they bark like dogs. They growl.
They scream like
They
you do.
holler like you wouldn't believe.
They make some.
So this last elk season, my son and I, my good buddy, and our nephew were all hunting elk up on the mountain, and my buddy and I had KP duty that evening. We weren't hunting; we were down at the tent, down at the wall tents, cooking supper. And we up on the mountain, you could hear howling like, oh, and then you'd hear a different noise. And my son, everybody had a radio. My son was like, "What? Hey, does anybody hear that noise?" And we're like, "Yeah, we can hear it clear down here at camp." And it was Tom and a sow mountain lion breeding, and they were like 100 yards from him, and he was field dressing a bull elk right then, which was a little scary.
Yeah, a little bit scary, yeah.
And my nephew was just like 100 yards upslope above the lions coming towards Sam, and it's like, yeah, we hear that going on. What's going on?
It's
They're very vocal.
Very vocal. Bobcats can just about make all the same sounds, maybe a lesser volume, but you can hear them through the woods. And the few times I've actually heard them really, I hate to use this term, but scream. I mean, people used to say they sounded like a woman screaming in the woods. And I've read stories about that for years and heard people say it. It's not totally untrue. If you really listen, you can kind of tell it's not. But at first,
the son was field dressing the elk.
Yeah, the line was letting him do it.
So we had to turn all the burners off on the propane stove and go help him carry that thing down the mountain. But there you go, in the dark, with lions howling around us.
Nothing like carrying the food bait down the mountain in the dark with
blood all over you.
What?
With blood all over you.
Yeah, with blood all over you.
Or your back.
Well. These are real circumstances by people who still live in areas where there's wildlife and animals, and it's not just people, and it's not just people who like to go hunting, but any camper or I mean, it could just be somebody living. It's not been very long ago that I don't remember which state this was in. It wasn't Colorado. But there were people that had some videos, like Ring doorbell kind of pictures of a couple of large mountain lions coming right into their backyard or right up on their porch. I mean, these critters are out there, and
I sent you some photos of a friend of mine from Lander that had a lion on his back deck, just like looking in the.
Well, that could be what I'm thinking about.
Looking in the sliding glass window, like, hey, what's going on inside of there?
We got to eat in there. It's kind of like there was a commercial out there, and I have a love-hate thought process for things like this, but there's a commercial, and it's for some kind of cough, throat lozenge or something, and there's a bear leaning in the window, and the lady standing there doing her dishes. And they start talking about, he likes honey, and that leads to a conversation about a honey flavored throat lozenge. And I'm thinking that's kind of a neat commercial, but then I'm thinking, I don't know if that's really that good. Really not that sure that's that good of an example, because that's not that far from the truth. There's a guy, Mark. I don't know if you've ever seen this guy.
Well, we always say a fed bear is a dead bear.
Red bear's a dead bear. I used to have a
You
bumper
feed
sticker on
them,
my truck that said that.
somebody has to deal with it later on, and they're
There was
not
a
happy about it.
yeah. What was I getting
Believe
ready to
me.
say? Oh, I don't know if you've seen this guy. I think you have. His name's Pat Connolly, and he lives in Asheville or on the suburbs of Asheville. And he has black bears that regularly get up on his porch. Now he doesn't,
I've seen that guy.
to my knowledge, he doesn't actively feed these bears, but at the same time, he has bird feeders out, and they know where the bird feeders are, so they come rate them for bird feed. And he's had generations of the same sow bringing cubs, like every couple of years, she brings a new set to visit. And he's even had cubs that bring back their cubs.
Yeah.
But, and I have a really hard time hitting the like button on something like that because in my mind, I don't want to approve of that kind of behavior because sooner or later
He's feeding those bears.
he is
Whether
he
it's
is
intentional or not intentional, he's feeding the bears.
one of these days, I have a feeling that they're going to get a little too close for comfort.
Some bears, one of
get
the
really
bears
close
is going
right
to do
now.
something that bears do.
Do what now?
I mean, one of these days, one of those bears is going to do what it does, and
Yeah,
his grandkid's going to get caught in the yard, or something is going to happen. And
I'm,
that's just the reality of the situation. I mean, we have terrible problems with that with people, especially we have people that come up here and buy a cabin and stay up here all summer and feed bears.
yeah,
And then it's like we always ended up getting to deal with them when they left after the summer was over and they were gone. And those bears are like, well, somebody else has got to be feeding me now. And they go to, some other deal, or they start killing livestock or whatever. And yeah, it's just folks need to just leave wildlife be.
okay. I'm just not. I get what you're saying in a way, but I'm not going to comment. I'm going to let that go. Because it's kind of like the guy on the porch, with the black bears. Sooner or later, I'm afraid that's going to cause trouble. If not with you, with his neighbors and or with your neighbors. And that's the thing about this guy in North Carolina. He has houses around him, and I've seen the bears leave his porch and go next door and tear up a car or rip up something. I mean, you just don't know what their next thing's going to be to do, and it can just lead to bad situations. Now, I was going to add something to that. It is actually amazing to me that here in the Smokies region that we don't have more of it happening because, as I mentioned a minute ago, it's not hard to get close to black bears in the Smokies. Now, they're not tame bears, but they are so acclimated to humans being around them that you get really close, sometimes really easy. I've been within 10 feet of a sow and three cubs one day. It scared, and it was both amazing and then scary as hell when I realized that all I would probably have had to have done was scare one of those bear cubs, and she might have been all over my lunch. And I mean, it's just that easy to do, and I wasn't doing it on purpose. They came, they came running by me, but that's the kind of thing that leads people to reach out and pet one or throw one a candy bar and then see mama comes back. Or I mean, it's just so I'm actually surprised we don't have more interactions of the bad kind. And Mark mentioned something else a minute ago. He mentioned they hauled this beer drinking bear off, and 150 miles or whatever away, and he came back and beat them back to the side, and that's what they discovered. Like in the Smokies, they can't just move one to the other end of the Smokies. He'll come back if he's got his favorite ham sandwiches are coming out of a campground, he's going to come back to that campground. Uh, they have released bears here in the Cumberland Mountain area, which is still part of the Appalachians, but northwest of me here. And they have actually had bears come from there and go all the way back down to the Smokies, 150, 200 miles, and show back up in the very place where they captured them. So what that leads to is they have to euthanize the bear. A lot way of saying they got to kill it. And Mark's, that's what Mark's talking about. And I'll tell you something about that. Believe
And
it or not,
I hated that.
Mark and I both have hunted, but that is the most dreadful job, to have to euthanize, kill an animal for that reason is just something that neither one of us would want to do. I mean, I don't want to do that. And luckily, I haven't had to do it, but he has. And only because I work differently. My bears
Too many times, and it's just, and it's always the human being's fault.
Yeah, it's always human beings.
It's not their fault.
Bears can't do. They're just doing what comes natural, and that's easy.
I mean, we've had to put down all kind of bears because they're killing livestock or whatever, and it's awful. It's just soul
crushing. Put
crushing.
down a grizzly bear, you've told me, that's haunted.
It's just soul crushing to have to do any of that. You know, lions, bears, whatever. It's just not good.
Carol, thank you for being here and putting up with us. And
well, sorry we talked about what we talked about.
Well, I am and I'm not. I mean, I think
it is a fascinating subject.
It is, and some of us probably find it more fascinating than others. But and it's not the death, it's not the killing of, because it's not, when you say you're hunting an animal for some like this and have to put it down, it's not what you'd rather be doing. Even these great white hunters that did this in Africa and India back at the turn of the last century, this part of their job they didn't enjoy. I'll guarantee you this was not something they really wanted.
Well, I mean, look at what Corbett did after.
Yeah, he went.
I mean, he was hired specifically. He was an Army officer. He was hired specifically to because he was good at it, if you will, to deal with these man eaters, which was necessary if you were a human being in those areas. But it wasn't something he was like celebrating and having a big old high time about. It was his job, basically.
Yeah, and some of these hunters that we don't talk about, for obvious reasons, they didn't make it. Sometimes the animal won, and then they had to hire a Jim Corbett or a
right.
Hathaway Capstick to come in. And he didn't hunt as many really bad man eaters, but these people, Patterson or somebody like that, who had to come in and do it.
I mean, that guy was an engineer for bridge building.
That's true. He was a railroad engineer, not the toot driving the train kind, as John Wayne once said, but the kind that built the railroads.
Yeah,
and, he was actually at Savo to build that bridge. Was his whole. He was engineering that bridge, and he turned out, he became a hunter. But he had no choice.
I mean, he was a hunter beforehand, but
yeah, but you know what I mean.
But it was like, well, you know kind of what you're doing. Why don't you take care of this while you're here? And he wasn't getting any work done.
And that turned out,
yeah,
kind of bad. I got a question. Plus, there's still a couple people here. Nobody's mentioned it, but I put my logo up. I'm working on a logo for a business card and whatever else I end up putting it on. And it's up in the corner. And I'm really trying to figure out things that needs to be changed. I don't know if you can read it or not. The top part, I've got the name of my company, if you will. Brendan and I have kind of gone by this for a long time, the Pursuit of Happiness Corporation, or LLD or whatever, limited liability company. I don't have all that totally finalized, but I've been working on that for a while. And then they give me a place here I can put a slogan, and I think I'm just going to put something like Slancha on there because cheers. That's something I say. But if you think there's something better I should have for a tagline or a saying, I'll put that in there. And because I'm still working on the card. I'm still working on the design. I want to use a TP. I've been putting that on things for 50 years almost, and I would like to use it
as long as I've known you
in an honorable sort of way. But I don't. And that one's the only one I could find to use that at least was available from this card company. They actually had that one. I don't really like it, but I'm going to probably end up using it or some variation of it. But anyway, I want
we'll
to
build
come
you a
up with
better one than that.
well, I know, but I got to get it digitized and figure out how to get it on. Get it on the card. That's my problem.
I'll
I drew a
send
new
you
one last night.
and you can digitize it right on in there.
Do what?
We'll work you up one better than that.
Well, and then the other thing is, everybody knows I had surgery on this shoulder. That's why I'm in a sling today. I've been flapping it around too much lately, and it's hurting. But I've got 3 holes in this arm, and I think I'm gonna get a tattoo. I've never had a tattoo, but I talked to my daughter, who is my resident tattoo
specialist.
I'll tell you a funny story about that just in a minute. And I think what I'm going to do is use those dots and connect them up into an Ursa Major, and maybe and the Big Dipper maybe, and I think that's what I want to use for.
That'll be good.
That's what I want to use for a tattoo. And she and I were talking the other day about this, Kelly and I, and or texting, and because they'd rather text than talk. I don't know why that is.
Because they can go like this, and we can't, and we go like this.
Well, I can actually double thumb, but not like they can.
I can't do it.
Brenda can't do it either.
I still do this.
Brenda can type like lightning, but she can't do the double thumb thing on a phone.
My daughter does that so fast, and I'm like, and I call her either Book or Siri. I'm like, hey, Book, look up, and she'll like, did here it is.
Yeah.
And I can't do it.
So anyway, I think that's what. So Kelly and I were talking about this, and she said, "Well, I tell you what, you get ready." She's telling me this, and we'll go see my girl. She's got her own tattoo artist that she goes to all the time, and she said, "We'll set it up." She said, "I may try to get one at the same time so we can just be there together." And I said, "Well, maybe this would be cool." I said, "If I get a Big Dipper on your shoulder, we should put a Little Dipper and the pointing stars, which are the two on the end of at the end of the dipper, point to the North Star,
right,
at the tail of the Little Dipper." I said, "Maybe we can kind of line that up." And she said, "Well," she said, "I'll have to check, see if I've got room left on my shoulder." She needs to see if she's got room left on her shoulder.
I have a niece that there's zero space left.
I'm thinking there's not going to be a lot of room.
And what do you do when you're like that addicted to having tattoos? What do you do when you run out of room?
Well, I don't. That's a good question. Maybe have them lasered off and start all over again. I don't know.
As Dad told that old rendezvous guy that was a biker and a Vietnam veteran that we used to hang out with sometime, like, when you die, we're skinning you and making a lampshade out of you.
Because that's a waste of art. Let's face it.
That's a total waste of artwork.
I hate to even think about that, but it would work. Yeah, I don't know if you guys have ever seen my daughter, but she's got a couple of tattoos, and
uh,
anyway, I don't know, but I'd like to get it set up so she can have one like on her left shoulder. Well, it probably is not going to work, but she may still get a little. She liked the idea of having a Big Dipper and a Little Dipper. So even if they don't line up on exactly on her shoulder, I think that's what we're going to do eventually. Hey, Jonathan, welcome in. Lampshade, that's fun. Jonathan Chong just came in. I don't know if you know him or not, Mark. He hadn't been here in a long time, or we know him from other rooms, but he caught the lampshade part.
So I saw a guy in Rock Springs the other day that had a tattoo of a hand flipping the middle finger on his cheekbone.
On his cheekbone?
Like right here. Like, and it was this big, you know. And I said, I couldn't help myself. I'm an old man now and I can say stuff. And I said, I bet you're employable.
What did he answer? Or did he just turn another
And he
cheek?
just turned and walked away. And it was like,
Maybe that's sort of a way of expressing the idea of turning the other cheek. Maybe he turns that cheek.
it was like, how would you ever get a job?
Well, that's maybe he's not employable either. Maybe he's like us. He's too old, or maybe he don't care. I don't know.
He wasn't old. He was
he wasn't old.
He was a young punk kid that needs a job.
Well, even as acceptable as
he ain't ever gonna get one.
Do what?
I said he needs a job, but he ain't ever gonna get one.
Gotcha. As acceptable as tattoos have become, I think more so than when we were growing up, because that was, I can remember when Pat Hartless told us about how the Army had done a study and they proved that, if anybody had more than 3 tattoos, had a mental problem. Now, I don't think my daughter has a mental problem, but she definitely has a tattoo problem. And,
I didn't know anybody growing up except military guys that had tattoos. That was it.
Me either. And I had a guy tell me one time.
And it was usually an eagle, globe, and anchor on their forearm or on their shoulder. That was all I knew. And Navy guys with like anchors.
Or mama. I saw a few that said mama. I used one of my Boy Scout masters when I was growing up. In fact, the guy probably that was there when I got my Eagle Scout and stuff. He's the first guy that ever took me deer hunting, and we camped together. Well, he'd been in the Army at a young age and was in paratroopers, and he had a couple of tattoos. He had an airborne tattoo, for example, and he had a panther on one of his arms. I can't remember exactly where it was, the head of a panther.
Yeah.
And he said, don't, and he showed it to me one time. He said, look, this is why you don't want to get a tattoo. At least not on any place where you're still growing. Because he'd got it when he was, I don't know, 16 or 17. And then
his arms are like that big around.
And it's all distorted and it doesn't look like much. He said, because this is what happens. But so he kind of, and he's like you were saying, he's military and he had a couple, I think he had an Eagle. I don't think he was an 82nd or 101st Airborne. He had an airborne, some kind of airborne tattoo, and that panther. And I think he had somebody's name, which he may have said, don't do this either because they may not be with you.
Because they aren't with me anymore.
I've seen girlfriends' names hatched out because somebody got a tattoo and then she wasn't the girlfriend anymore. Hey, that's what I've heard. And that's what Mark was talking about. There are people that say you do get addicted to the endorphin flow. It's like eating hot peppers.
Yeah, I think my niece, I think she just joneses on the pain, if you will.
Hey, Mark, he said Mark got mine in Denver, Colorado on Colfax 19.
Drunk as a skunk.
That also has something to do with it, John.
Outstanding.
Tina said my dad had a panther on his arm. I wonder did you know what it was for, Tina? because I don't remember what what was his name? Mr. Ledford, but I grew up to know him later, and we were on a first name basis. His son was a expert with a pistol, long range pistol marksman. He won state championships several times with silhouettes with a handgun. Golly, what is his birthday? I'll remember it later probably. But anyway, I don't remember why he had the panther, but it did have something. It was symbolic of something. I just don't remember what. I don't know if that's a group or regiment within the airborne or something. Do you know if was your dad in the army or military, Tina? I think that's who she said she was talking
Probably
about.
Black Cat Fireworks. Because they got a Black Panther on their logo.
Well, speaking of the endorphins, I don't know how many other people do this, but I used to love to eat a certain amount of hot stuff. Not the kind where it blows your head off and you can't taste anything for a week, but like spicy salsa and stuff. I used to really enjoy. I still like it, but not like
until you stuff it
like
down into your lungs.
Well, yeah, and I've inhaled it down to my lungs. That's true. That's not a fun thing.
I've seen that happen.
You've seen that happen. You have. But anyway, I found that when I was eating stuff that was hot, that the more it burned, the more I ate. I mean, I know it was the endorphin thing going on. It was like, God, this is really good. And the more I would want to eat more of it because it just, it kept burning. It kept my mouth at a level of heat, but it wasn't ridiculous heat. I don't have to do that. I don't need ghost peppers and crap, but the endorphin thing, and I think that does play into the tattoo. I don't know if that's why Kelly does it. Kelly started doing it because she wanted flowers, and she was just a tiny bit rebellious as a teenager. Who are you laughing at? Is it John?
Okay.
Okay. Good idea, John. What? I had two friends who had tattoos. One had a circle, dolphin circle. And they changed
to look pregnant.
Oh, you can bet they did. I bet they didn't look anything.
I bet the dolphins started looking like sea monsters or something.
And I can't imagine what Tweety Bird turned into.
It turned into that big one. Remember how it used to?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's right. The Jekyll and Hyde version of
the Jekyll and Hyde version of Tweety Bird.
I forgot about that. Did you see what John said? I don't want to just pass this.
I'm crying. I can't look. Oh. Stomach must be painful.
No, that's a different one.
Young lady taught me how to get my girlfriend on it. Went with mom and dad instead. Thank God.
Yeah, good choice, John. I think that there's a lot of people made that mistake in their life.
Stella, and then it's like, I hate you. I want my records back.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe you can take Stella if it's an Ella, but you're not going to be that lucky.
You just have to turn it into a black mark.
She said the dolphins turned into whales.
The Hyde version of Tweety and whales.
Kelly has two big lilies tattooed right here on her shoulders. And there's probably stuff underneath her shirt that I don't know because I ain't never seen it. I just get to see what's outside her arms or outside the sleeves of her shirts and her legs when she's got on shorts. But she's told me which ones were the most painful. Things that are on bone, like your ankles, for example, or your hands. I see people with stuff tattooed on their fingers. That's painful. Those are hard areas to tattoo, usually. And she's talked about the ones that hurt the worst. Brenda's been trying to get, there she is. Brenda has been trying to get her and Kelly and Jennifer to and her get a tattoo that somehow goes together, mom and the daughters. But that's why I thought it'd be kind of cool to get one with Kelly. But we'll see what happens. I'll probably have to save up some money just to get it because they ain't cheap.
They're free if you give them to yourself.
Good
Using them,
point.
using a mammoth ivory bone needle.
I tell you what, we need to figure out how to make one of those like bamboo ones like the Japanese use. And I'll come out and visit, and you can put one on my back or something. You can practice on me. What does Tina say? I have a friend who got her and a best friend tattoo. I put best friend in quotes because for reasons I'll leave out, they aren't best friends anymore. She got the tattoo modified to her daughter. Well, she was lucky then. I have known people that had to have them lasered off because they said the wrong things also. Brenda, since you're in here, didn't Kelly have something burned off? I want to say she did, but I'm not positive about that.
I can't remember the show that I was watching at one time. A gal had she was like a redneck gal, something that had a tattoo that said angel, but they had misspelled it and it said angle.
Yeah, that's bad. Oh, it's bad.
I can't remember it. And the guy asked her, "What's your tattoo say?" And she said angel, and he goes, "Well, it says angle." And I can't remember the show now, but
you got to make sure somebody knows how to spell.
Anyway,
I've seen that a couple of times where they misspell words. I'm just like, oh my, did they not? Does nobody proofread anything anymore? I mean, they draw it out on your skin usually and put it. You'd think somebody checked the spelling, but if you get a tattoo, I highly recommend you make sure they check the spelling because once it's on there, it's hard to get rid of. You can get stuff lasered, but even that's not cheap or fun. So it's just a sort of a last ditch resort kind of thing. She had something redone on her stomach. That's what I was thinking. She had something redone and had to get. We never did really discuss that with me. She might have talked to Brenda about it, but she's got quite a few. So if you ever have any questions about tattoos, and she's got her favorite, like she said, her girl that she goes to for everything. I think over time she's had 2 or 3 different tattoo artists that have done things, but I think some of them are not as good as others. I'd love to get her on here to talk about it. Add an R. You could. John's got an idea. If you had angle instead of angel, you could put an R on it with a fishing rod, and then it would be angler. That would be.
that'd work.
That'd fix it.
That'd work. Perfect.
That'd be a good idea. That's a good fix, John. You need to write these things down because you never know when you might run across somebody that needs something like that fixed on their tattoo. You could put a fly. I mean, I could see how you could put a arc of fly rod with a line out, and you can make it look really good. And it would help probably if you'd ever, gone fishing. But even if not, it'd be better than have a misspelled word on your chest or wherever it was at. I tell you what, I have seen more and more people that just were all but covered. And I don't, while I don't think tattoos are so horrible anymore, but I'm not sure I'd want to be covered. Maybe I'm afraid somebody would make a lampshade out of me. I don't know, but if it's done right, I've seen images of people who had full leg sleeve and that looks really cool. I saw somebody not long ago that had they were showing some tattoos that were designed and made like in the crook of your arm, so that when you had it closed, it might be an eagle head. I'm just making this up because I can't remember what it was, but when you opened your arm, it was like the bird in flight. I mean, they're really cool, but it would take a lot to get that all figured out and make sure you got it right.
Sleeves and front and back.
Oh wow, John.
One's brother.
Do what?
I know a lot of vets that are full sleeve, both sides.
I see a lot. I see a lot. I mean,
As a matter of fact, when I see that, I usually think, "You." So when were you in the sandbox? I mean,
well, he bartered a 1970 Sportster for some of his ink, did he? I wonder how much that got him, John. Of course, a 1970 Sportster. Now that was nothing personal here, your brother. 1970 Sportsters. Harleys were built by AMC back then, and they were junk. So maybe he didn't get as much as you might think. But 1970, that might have been. No, James Bronson wrote a earlier model than that, but he wrote a Sportster on the TV show. Then came Bronson. Oh, it was before AMF. Okay, well he might have that probably decent then. That was before they went to crap, and then they had to come back and restart all over again almost. AMF pretty much ruined Harley. That's why I don't want one to this day.
bartered a 1970 Sportster for some.
For some, yeah, not all. Some. It's not. I mean, I asked Kelly that one time, and I guess they have flat fees, but they also charge by the hour. So if you're getting a whole sleeve done, it's going to cost you some money.
Yeah,
because it's going to take a while. They can't do it all at one time either, and it's going to take a period of hours, and that's going to cost you some bucks. And honestly, if they're good and it looks the art's, and I do think some of it's art, some of it's just junk, but some of it just looks like bad graffiti. But if it's well done, it is art. Whether you like it or not, they like it. Oh, guys. Well, I guess I better shut this thing down. People are leaving. It's time to go. I'm sure you got things you got to go do. You probably got to go braid some more rawhide.
I got some rawhide to braid.
So, how many more bosals are you making?
Many as I can get sold.
Oh, okay. So you're openly marketing them then.
Yeah, if they want a good hackamore set up, I'll build them a hackamore. If they want a saddle, I'll build them one of those.
Well, I know.
I'm branching out just a little bit.
So, what's a good basal cost? A basic one.
It depends on what you want. If you want junk or you want good stuff. I mean, if you want good stuff, you're going to pay more than $300.
Well, that's about what I figured.
If you want some junk that's made on a bicycle chain that you got that was braided in India, seriously, you're going.
I believe you.
I mean, they use cables. They use like telephone cable for the core and braid over it, and pay some kid, 2 cents a day or whatever. They sell those for you can buy a bosal for $100 or less.
Brenda had a really good idea last night after we talked about some of this yesterday. I was showing her a picture of a bosal online because I was showing her not what you've done. Well, I did show her. You sent me pictures, and I was showing those pictures. And I'd really like to do a video of you, or maybe put a camera on you and let you show some people kind of what you're making, if you would be willing to do that. And and I looked at some that they were even more intricate, and I'm sure they're $1,000.
Oh, you can make it way intricate.
That were just fascinating. So, what do you use in the center? Are yours just is the cord braided also, or do you put something in it?
No, it's a twisted rawhide cord. It's just
Okay, so you're making
you
everything
take like a 3/4 inch piece of rawhide that's this long,
right.
and you twist it over itself
That makes
flat, and you keep it all nice and neat, and you nail it down on each end, and you let it dry out hard.
so it stays that way.
And that's your core. This is a core that's covered in tape. That's rawhide inside, and then I build up the outside with tape just to.
And then
And
you
this is
braid
all
over.
the tape. This is all the tape I had. So I usually use a white tape, but I used electrical tape this time, cloth electrical tape. But it's just a 1/4 inch piece of twisted rawhide, and then I braid over top of this
Yeah.
with rawhide strings,
Where do you start the braiding?
and it goes over the nose of a horse like that.
Kind of like that. And under the, so where do you start the braiding? Top, bottom, end? I mean, where does the
Well,
braiding actually begin?
I'll start on this end. You
Yeah.
leave about 8 or 10 inches of hide hanging out here, and this will have 8 strings for the diameter of this. It'll take 8 1/4 inch strings. They'll be about that long above it, about that long above it. And I'll tie it off and I'll braid it all the way to the other end, this end, and then have 8 inches of strings above this end.
So
Because
that's
you need that when you're tying your heel knot, which is a whole
right.
nother. I mean, we're getting into a whole.
Yeah, I don't want. I know. I
Folks
don't
don't
go
care,
there.
but
Yeah, I get it.
maybe folks care, but I'm getting technical.
Well, I think people would be interested in it. I mean, if they saw what you were doing, I think it's. I mean, I told Brenda last night we were driving. We ran some errands after you and I talked first time, and you take this for whatever you want to, but it's always I'm always been envious of you and your dad to a degree, but especially you because you can take a book and learn something and you actually do it better than anybody I think I've ever known. I mean, it's at
Well,
least.
I appreciate that.
I mean, no, I'm serious. I've been considered a fairly intelligent human being in my time, but I can't do that. I can read it and know what they're talking about, but I can't just take it. I can't take a Ben Hunt book and make something that looks just like the Ben Hunt book. You can, and you've been able to do that ever since I've known you, and it does fascinate me.
It's a gift.
It is a
It's a
gift.
pure gift. It was a gift. I've been thankful for it my whole life. It's a gift.
And I mean, I really have to work to try to do something like that, and you just seem to be able to, not that it's not work. I know you put a lot of effort into it, but it's just natural.
You look at my hands.
And I mean, it's like your dad making a rifle or something. I mean, I've never seen anybody that was as good at putting lines on a piece of wood and making a rifle. I've seen you carve some neat stuff, but your dad can put a stock on a muzzle of a rifle, a flintlock or something, and it's just perfect. And it's always that. Well, it's in there. You just got to carve all the extra wood away from it, kind of concept. But it's not as. It's a lot easier said than done, as you know.
How do you carve that duck out of wood? Well, you just carve away everything that don't look like a duck.
First time somebody said that, I wanted to hit them, but it's true. I mean, that's what you're doing.
Well, it was probably Jed Clampett.
Well, they could have been.
How did you carve that duck? Well, I just carved away everything that didn't look like a duck.
But I mean, your saddle work and your leather work is just.
Well, I appreciate that. I know many people that are way better at it than I am. But
Well, maybe they are, and I get that. I know you wouldn't brag about yourself anyway, but just the fact that I know you, that makes it special because I know you. But I know that guy. But I mean, I've seen you do it, and I've seen stuff you've done, and it's everybody can't do that. I mean, I can fix an airplane. You may not be able to do that. I can fix an airplane,
Yeah, I don't.
but I can't braid. I've not learned how to braid a piece of rawhide yet.
You
Maybe
start
someday.
talking about engines and things, I'm like, I don't get it.
What John
Cylinders
said,
and pressures.
that's what all us artists say. Just draw it, just carve it. Well, Jonathan, are you an artiste? Because I don't know if you specialize in something or not. We've never talked about that. I'm not saying you're not, and maybe you're just saying something to be funny because we've been joking about it. But um, I'd love to know if you have a talent for something like that. Uh, I just think it's cool. I really do envy people who can just do that. And like I said, Mark's been doing this kind of stuff, and I'd have to say, and I know this isn't entirely true, but you're almost entirely self-taught, as far as I know.
Yeah.
You may have looked at somebody else's work.
Well, I read books,
Well,
but
yeah, that's what I mean. But you learned it by doing that, by reading books and looking at pictures and doing it yourself. And
yeah,
that's
most.
what, and that's what I was telling Brenda. That's the thing. I mean, you
Well,
can
I went to one when I was a boy, a little boy. Mom took me to art class because I was always drawing something, and she's like, "Well, you might as well learn to do it for real." And
good for her.
took me to art class in Ohio, and right when we got back from Vietnam, and the gal, like, I would draw. She'd say, "Okay, you're going to draw the palm of your hand," and kind of show you kind of how you're going to do that. And I would draw the palm of my hand and my fingers and everything, and then put all the lines in there and everything. And then she would draw on my pictures with red ink pen, like circle the palm. It needs to be bigger or whatever. And she'd draw all over my pictures, and it infuriated me.
I was going to say, I bet that
And
made
I
you.
went to like 2 or 3, and I was like, I'm out.
You're not going to
I'm
do
not going back.
that.
I've It
I've
was
drawn
like when she tried to make me go to church, and the guy at Sunday school hollered at me and told me I was going to burn in hell for all eternity. And I said, I am never going back to church.
exactly. I can draw, and I used to draw airplanes and ships and boats and stuff. But what I've never learned how to do is perfect that depth idea and shadowing. I can't do that. And I want to learn how to do that. I told Brenda the other day I'd love to take some art classes so I could learn how to do that and be able to draw better in that regard. Because I quit.
Well,
Yeah.
there's probably something local there
Well, there probably is.
or online that you could do that you wouldn't even have to leave the library.
Well, that's probably true. That's what I need to be checking. I want to work on that, but because I haven't, I quit. I quit trying to draw stuff a long time ago because I couldn't get done what I wanted to do. I can still do it. And Brenda says Jennifer got that kind of stuff from me because Jennifer's an artiste, more so than Kelly. Kelly's more like Brenda in that regard, but um, although I must say that her art, her I don't even know what you call it, the macabre art that she does now.
That's pretty cool stuff she works.
Yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. So she is artistic, just in a different way.
Yep.
But, anyway, what's Jonathan said? I have a background in building props and stuff. Well, just being able to build stuff like that, Jonathan, is a that's what your avatar is. Okay, well I can't see it that well. That's cool. And he said something about
Very cool.
my teachers never did that. They drew mini sketches on separate paper. Well, maybe that's what Mark's teacher should have done. There is a local art shop downtown that offers adult art classes. That's right. We did see. That's what brought it up the other day.
What do you
remember.
mean downtown? Like downtown where you're at, or
Yeah,
downtown Knoxville?
no, Rogersville down here. There's a little art gallery down there, and they did have a sign out the other day about adult art classes.
Well,
I
there you go, buddy.
may,
You
yeah, I
can
may have to
go
look
down there and learn to draw still lifes and things, and then then you can go from there.
yeah, maybe I can get back
You'll
into it.
draw a bowl of fruit, and then you'll get to do something cooler.
It's all in the practice over and over. Everyone says I'm not as talented as others like you, and to a degree, maybe I see a little bit. But the truth is, at some point, I was drawing stick figures. Well, yeah, and that's where I didn't get advanced too far, Jonathan. I drew stick figures and flat things, and I might have got a lot of neat boats. And I can remember doing a whole project one time where I do all these different kinds of sailing ships, and everybody said they came out pretty good. I mean, I was a kid. I was in elementary school, but I never did get much past that. They were flat objects, 2D kind of stuff. And I always had trouble with that, some of that depth, and especially the shading part of that. I want to learn more. So
Which
eventually,
is what gives you your depth,
which
buddy.
is what gives you your depth, right? And anyway, that was I'd still like to do more.
Angles and shading and depth and
Oh my.
oh my.
Well, anyway, seriously, I would like to talk to you about you. Maybe I can get Caitlin to help me out with that and take some video of you actually working on a bossel or something. Because I'd love to, not for just for my benefit, but I'd love to show it. Even if you didn't want to know, even if you didn't want people to know who it was or something, I'd still like to be able to show it to people and see, look how this is done. Because buddy, those kind of things are getting lost. It's just like you told me yesterday. The old guy or the other day, the old guy that lived downtown that did rawhide braid.
I would love to have sat.
You never even knew he existed. I mean, and he's gone now. So
Yeah, I have a bunch of his tools. I just, I'm bless his wife. She sold me that stuff for a song, which I didn't want to. I wanted to give her more, and she wouldn't take more. She's like, "You'll use it. You'll keep using these tools that my husband used. I know you'll use them. Then this is what I want." And I'm like, "No, that's not enough money." And she just wouldn't let it go. So
yeah,
anyway,
I knew it was going to a good home though, and that
I
makes a big
walked out of there with some pretty cool stuff.
yeah. I've been
And this hide that I just cut up is the last one he ever
oh,
personally
you got
did.
that from him, or I mean from her.
Yeah, and I just made like 500 feet of rawhide string out of it, and I'll be using it for a while. So,
And just since we're talking about it, I didn't want it wasn't going to go here right now, but he tanned and treated his own hides and leather and rawhide, did he not? Didn't you tell me that?
well, it's not tan because rawhide's not
Well,
tan,
yeah,
but
right.
he scraped and took the hair off these
Yeah,
hides
yeah, I
himself,
didn't mean raw. That's what I
which
meant.
is how you need to get good rawhide. You can buy rawhide, but if you want the good stuff, you make it yourself.
That's
But you
not
have
easy.
to have the source of cow hides, etc. And
I got a piece of rawhide here somewhere.
I have a source for cowhide, plenty of cowhides, but
I've got a deer hide here that I prepped and scraped and cleaned, and it's still in the rawhide form, and I think I've got it rolled up in a tube so it wouldn't get damaged when we move. But I never have done anything with it. But that was work, and a cowhide is much bigger. I mean, it takes a little bit of effort to do that kind of
yeah,
stuff.
you bet.
Well, anyway, maybe one day we'll hop online again one day, maybe just
All
me
right,
and you.
we
And
can
you
talk
can show
about
us
this.
something. Yeah. So anyway, guys, thanks for being here. Jonathan, thanks for stopping by. Good to see you. I hadn't seen you. I don't know if you've been in this chat before, but if you haven't, welcome. And if you have, thanks for coming back. And everybody else that's either here or already gone, um, really appreciate you guys. I have just have a few regulars that show up, and that's okay because I get used to it. I talk about the stream getting bigger sometimes, but it's not just because I want to. I kind of like the crowd I got, but
Well, we've been on for 3 hours.
well, that's true. It's time to go. Damn, where does the time go? And this is what happens when we were together. We just
When we get to BS and so.
yeah, but it's not always just BS, and it's usually got a point.
All right, my brother, I'm going. I'm getting hungry, and I got to go to work.
Yeah, me too. So you get busy, and I'll see you soon. Everybody else, have a great weekend.
Thanks, everybody.
Everybody take care and be safe out there, and we'll see you again next week. No outro video. Not yet. I probably will learn how to do that too eventually. Hello.
Hey.
Hey.
You're still live. I can still see you.
I am?
Yes, you are.
Well, I hit the end stream. Oops.